We sure can. Jeff, you ready?
I think I'm ready. I'm not sure.
As Jeff's getting his logistics together, I do want to echo your comments, though, Dr. Woodson, and I can give an update here momentarily when I get to my section about where we're at with the search. But Art's been a great battle buddy for me here, and I think he's moving on, as you said, to another opportunity here. But he's really brought this school to the next level. I think that's really going to be his legacy here, and I'll talk a little bit more specifically about the search that we're going to go through here and the details of that. But Jeff, if you're ready.
All right. Let me hold on a second. I got to switch things over.
This is like one of those David Letterman moments, right?
Well, while you're taking care of that, I want to make some other announcements. As all of you know, Sarah Marshall had stepped up from her usual job as deputy PAO to do a great job filling the gap of the DFO. Recently hired is Ms. Annette Askins Roberts, who is going to be the permanent DFO, and we want to welcome her to USU and to the board. We know that she's a vital connection between the board and the school, and so we appreciate her taking on these responsibilities and look forward to working with her as well. Ms. Askins Roberts, do you want to say hello?
Good morning, everyone. Morning. I look forward to working with you all.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
And thanks to Sarah. She did a great job.
Yeah, well, that was going to be my next comment. Thanks, Ron. Again, Sarah really did an outstanding job filling the gap and the breach. And so really do appreciate all that you've done as well. So again, a nice cyber round of applause for your efforts as well.
Bravo.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Just some program announcements. We will discuss the Board of Regents bylaw amendments in the closed session, but I ask everyone to refer to the notes given to you. The calendar for 2020 and 2021 appears in tab 5. If there are any concerns about the dates, please let us know. We will also talk about a reformatting of the schedule for the board meetings in the closed session. This was briefly discussed during the last meeting about going to perhaps a single day meeting, but we'll have more discussion later. The next Board of Regents meeting is on Monday, November 2nd. Pending what happens with the COVID sort of crisis, we'll be making an announcement as to whether or not that'll be virtual or in person. We continue to pursue actions to fill the Board of Regents that are scheduled to rotate off. This continues to be a difficult, if not frustrating, situation in terms of the slowness with which new board members are being approved, but will continue to pursue that. I know everyone in the university has their eye on the ball and is in constant contact with the Department of Defense to try and move these nominations along. Jeff, are you ready at this time?
So why don't we keep on going?
Okay. Very good. So why don't we move on to the reports that are due. Actually, let's just make mention of the matters of general consent. I think most of these actions have already been approved, but if there's any need to discuss these actions, we will entertain them now.
So the other thing is to go down to Dr. Travis.
Yep. Mhm.
And give the, and as far as one of the things in the board actions that the Regents already took care of had to do with an award that Dr. Travis wanted to give.
Okay, so let's turn it over to Dr. Travis, who has a presentation of an award.
Hey, good morning, sir. Tom Travis here from San Antonio. I wore a tie today. I had to Google how to tie it. But and having heard the previous comments, I would add I am wearing long pants for a change. So thank you for the opportunity to do this to the board and to Dr. Thomas from down here in San Antonio. As some of you are aware, not only is Art leaving, but also Brigadier General retired Chuck Potter leaving us about 2 weeks. His replacement has been selected and will be on board soon. That's Colonel Pete Peters, retired Air Force as well. He'll on board in a couple of weeks. But it's a real pleasure for me to do this presentation on your behalf as the board, recognizing General Potter for exceptional service as the Assistant Vice President for University Programs for this region. During his time, General Potter, who's an experienced and talented senior medical service corps leader, many of you knew in his previous role when he was still active duty during my time, he provided expert guidance and support to the USU Southern Region, the Postgraduate Dental College, and the College of Allied Health Sciences. He assured personnel finance administration were reinforced and sustained, so this critical regional office, our two deans here and their staffs, could operate effectively in an era of extreme financial and organizational pressures, and I would add viral pressures lately. In particular, during this time, General Potter's strong support was crucial as the College of Allied Health Sciences grew from a concept into a vital organization that it now is, supporting thousands of military health system trainees per year, greatly enhancing their readiness and ability to operate with full certification while attaining college credit. General Potter was the first person to serve as the Assistant VP for the region. And of course, in that time, we've all benefited from his extraordinary commitment and his superlative efforts. So in recognition of these significant accomplishments, the Board of Regents is pleased to award the Exceptional Service Award to Brigadier General retired Charles E. Potter. Chuck's in the office next to me. Hey, Chuck, would you join me?
Yes, sir.
Plan was to do this from our conference room, but it is not working this morning. So here we go. You can see it. There's Chuck, also wearing a tie. He didn't have a suit. Yeah, Dr. Pelayo is standing over in the doorway, socially distanced. But thank you to the board for approving this important award for General Potter. And Dr. Woodson, as you said, a cyber round of applause, please. Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, sir.
Now go back to your office. And thank
Well,
you.
our deep thanks to General Potter for all of his service to the nation and service to the university. The university is better for having had him in those positions. So thank you so much.
Thanks, sir.
So we want to return to Dr. Thomas. Jeff, are you ready at this time?
I think so. Are you able to see my phone video? It's under iPhone.
Actually, yeah, they should be able to see it now.
Yes.
And you can hear me? Okay, great. Dr. Thomas, ready?
There you go.
Okay.
You get your man.
Yeah.
Like a virtual walk through your office and office suite there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to run back and get my mask. All right, here we go. No, to be honest with you, I left that behind. Let me see if I can get it from Kevin real fast. Hold tight there for a second. Do you have the citation handy? Yeah. The latest version. Great. Ready?
So
surprise, Dean Kellerman. Look at you, you're on school. So we're here. Okay, this is not 6 feet of old disinfectant. I appreciate it. Besides, on behalf of the board of Regents, I'd like to school medicine and all the schools here at the university and all the folks that are in the history. I want to present you with the university medal here. So
We just need you to get a little closer to the microphone.
Okay, we're going to actually do a brief reading of the citation for the university medal that we're presenting to Dr. Kellerman here. This was a surprise for you, right?
It's a huge surprise.
Jeff, we need you to turn back on your iPhone microphone. Dr. Longacre, can you turn back on your iPhone microphone? We have no audio.
I think it,
Let's try it again.
Try it now. Citation to accompany the award of University Medal to Arthur L. Kellerman, MD, MPH. Arthur L. Kellerman, MD, MPH, distinguished himself by exceptionally superior service as the Dean of America's Medical School. Dr. Kellerman challenged his faculty to create a structured approach to leader development that is now fully integrated.
Speaker.
Your
speaker.
USU is the first medical school evaluated under the new LCME accreditation standards. Although the standards cause significant challenges for many top-tier schools, USU earned full reaccreditation for the maximum period. Dean Kellerman worked tirelessly to ensure that the School of Medicine is a safe and inclusive environment for women and minorities. He helped fuel the school's output of militarily relevant, high-impact research by recruiting outstanding physician scientists, fostering partnerships within the military research enterprise, and collaborations with federal funders and universities, and dramatically expanding research opportunities for students. A respected leader, his clear voice for the military health system has guided leadership to the benefit of the nation. The distinctive accomplishments of Arthur Kellerman reflect great credit upon himself, the Uniformed Services University, the Health Sciences, Health Affairs, and the Department of Defense.
You know, this is just a token of our appreciation. And I know when you look at this, at least you'll think of us. And I know that in your next position, as you move on, that you'll always be our teammate, our battle buddy. And we look forward to dealing with you in the future too. So thanks for everything you've done here. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, President Thomas. I will think of this place every day and do everything I can to advance the cause of this university for military health for the rest of my career, the rest of my life. This has been the best opportunity I have ever had. I will treasure every minute of every day that I have spent here and the team that you all have built. It's been an honor. I would not be having this opportunity were it not for my time at the university, and I'll continue to be an advocate for military health as long as I possibly can. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Art. I appreciate it very much.
Well, let's give another warm cyber applause to Dean Kellerman for his outstanding job. And Dean Kellerman, we appreciate your very artistic magic there. So I'm not sure where you got it, but it looks good. Let's go ahead and now proceed with the board actions for today. We're going to begin with degree conferrals from the School of Medicine, and over to you, Dr. Kellerman, once again.
Is the sound working again?
It is.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Back to the business at hand. 4 students enrolled in 3 graduate programs of the School of Medicine are recommended for advanced degrees by their dissertation committees and the School of Medicine, Office of Graduate Education. The appropriate documentation is in tab 11 of your briefing book. 2 are recommended for the degree of Master of Science by our Department of Preventive Medicine and Biostatistics.
one for the Doctor of Philosophy degree by our Department of Medical and Clinical Psychology, and one for the Doctor of Philosophy degree by our program in Emerging Infectious Diseases. I request the university be authorized to award these degrees based on each student's successful completion of their course of study, thesis defense, and other requirements.
Dr. Kellerman has offered degree recommendations for conferrals. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much, Dean Kellerman.
Thank you.
We're going to move on then to Dr. Thomas Schneid and the Postgraduate Dental College.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Woodson. Is my sound okay?
You are. Lima
Yes, thank
Charlie,
you.
as they say.
Thank you, sir. I have one postgraduate dental college student today that I'm seeking endorsement for the Master of Science degree at this meeting. His name is listed in tab 12. And we had previously expected that this student's graduation would be slightly delayed. However, he was able to finish his requirements, all degree requirements, by the 30 June program completion date. However, we weren't assured of that until after the May Board of Regents meeting. So we are seeking the board's endorsement and Dr. Thomas's approval to have his diploma reflect the date of 30 June for his program completion. So the Postgraduate Dental College respectfully requests that the Board of Regents endorse the recommendation to grant this degree.
Thank you, Dr. Schneid. Dr. Schneid has made a recommendation for a conferral of degree. Do I have a recommendation to approve?
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? We're going to now move to the College of Allied Sciences and Dr. Palo. Dr. Vallejo.
Good morning. Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Is everybody able to hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
The list of college and allied health students recommended for the associate and bachelor's degrees in science at this board meeting are enclosed in your Board of Regents reports under tab 13. These students have met all academic, clinical, and scholarly requirements to graduate in August 2020 for the degree indicated. Therefore, we are presenting for approval 63 students comprising 35 Associate of Science in Health Science and 28 Bachelor of Science in Health Science recipients, including 50 Army, 9 Navy, and 4 Air Force students.
You've heard the recommendations for conferral of degrees from the College of Allied Health Sciences. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second. Second, sir.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Dean Kellerman, back to you for faculty appointments and promotions.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. The faculty members recommended by the School of Medicine's Committee on Appointments, Promotions, and Tenure
I believe he's muted himself.
Let's try it again. Okay?
Yes.
Sorry about that. The faculty members recommended by the School of Medicine Committee on Appointments, Promotions, and Tenure are in tab 14 of your briefing book. Among the worthy individuals on this list, I want to draw particular attention to 3 exceptional women who've reached the pinnacle of academic achievement: Dr. Jessica Servey, Dr. Laura Maggio, and Dr. Barbara Nolman-Ritchell. All 3 have made and will continue to make exceptional contributions to the school. The list also includes a remarkable number of appointments and promotions in our Department of Surgery, which has become one of the top academic departments of surgery in the nation. And finally, I want to note the transition of 3 long-serving professors to emeritus status: Dr. Ilde Katona, who chaired our Department of Pediatrics for many years, Dr. Cindy Wilson, a professor in the Department of Family Medicine, and Dr. Bill Hafner, who made extraordinary contributions to USU and our nation in the Indian Health Service, the U.S. Public Health Service as editor and as editor-in-chief of military medicine and professor of OBGYN at USU. Dr. Hafner recently learned that he's been selected by ACOG to receive the college's 2021 Louella Klein Lifetime Achievement Award, which honors an obstetrician and gynecologist who's dedicated his or her life in a significant way to women's health. These appointments and promotions were approved by the school's CAP committee at its December 4th meeting or were endorsed by a search committee functioning as a CAP equivalent. On behalf of America's Medical School, I request the board endorse the committee's recommendations.
Thank you,
So
Dean.
moved.
Thank you, Dean Kellerman. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you again.
Thank you.
We're going to next move on to the Graduate School of Nursing, and Dr. Seibert will be reporting for Dean Romano.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Woodson. The name of the two Graduate School of Nursing faculty members that we're recommending for promotion by the GSN Committee and Appointments on Appointments, Promotion, and Tenure are in tab 15. Noteworthy as one of them is our active duty military nurse corps officer, which is a fairly unusual occurrence in the GSN, so we want to acknowledge her. On behalf of the GSN, I respectfully request the Board of Regents endorse those recommendations.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seibert. You've heard the recommendations. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. We're going to return to Dr. Schneid for faculty appointments and promotion for the PDC.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. The faculty member recommended for promotion by the PDC Committee on Appointments and Promotion is listed at tab 16. The promotion that you see listed was approved by our committee at a meeting that was held on June 22nd. And on behalf of the Postgraduate Dental College, I respectfully request that the board endorse this recommendation.
You've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. I think at this time, we're going to go ahead and proceed with the list of presentations by officials and executives. We're going to begin with Dr. Richard Thomas, President of Uniformed Services.
Well, thank you, Dr. Woodson, and good morning, everyone. How's my sound, sir? Can you hear me okay?
Hear you well.
Great, thank you very much. I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. I want to give you an update first on a couple of the positions, the key leader positions we have here at the university and what the status is on those. Number one, the College of Allied Health Sciences. The dean search has been completed. I want to thank Dr. Tom Schneid for his efforts on chairing that committee. He did a great job. I was briefed at the end of last week and I've made a selection. The announcement will come later this week once I finish notifying all of the candidates that were in the final round there. As far as the Vice President for Research, that search also is completed. Much thanks to Dr. Bill Roberts. I was briefed on those findings last week and those recommendations and made a selection. Again, the announcement will come later this week on the new VPR. We've been talking a little bit this morning about Dean Kellerman's departure, and as I mentioned, he'll be sorely missed. We will start a search for a new dean. Right now, Dr. Dean Romano from the GSN has agreed to chair that committee. We're putting together the committee at this time. I expect to put an announcement out on or about the 1st of September. We'll post that for 30 days for a nationwide search. On the 15th of this month, I'll insert an interim dean for the School of Medicine. That'll be Dr. Lou Pangaro. And I think Dr. Pangaro is well known to those folks who've been around the university. He's a professor of medicine, has been at the university himself since about 1981. He served as the chair of medicine from 2008 to 2018, receiving his medical degree from Georgetown University, where he did his residency in internal medicine and fellowship in endocrinology. He then joined the Army, entered the Army as a research fellow in endocrinology at Walter Reed in 1978, remained on active duty in the Army for 20 years, and he was a faculty leader in curricular redesign for the School of Medicine's Molecules to Military Medicine curriculum. and he helped develop the Health Professions Education Graduate Program in his department. Dr. Pangaro is a great choice for this. He's known nationally for his work in faculty development and the evaluation of students. And I'm appreciative that he's agreed to step in as interim dean. The school will be in good hands while Dr. Kellerman is working to extract himself. He'll be working hand in hand with Dr. Pangaro. Jeff, if I could go to the next slide, please. I want to give an update to the board on the defense-wide review and the targeted reductions. CAPE has led budget reductions, and as you recall, Dr. Woodson and ladies and gentlemen, back on the 31st of October, the Secretary of Defense rejected the closure option for the university when that was presented to him by CAPE. Since that time, CAPE has developed a new strategy of what I call death by 1,000 cuts. And to date, you see some of the major budget cuts that are listed on this slide. In the O&M area, $10 million for FY21. And then in our research area, RDT&E programs, over 14 million reduction in FY21 and continuing into the future. And if we go to the next slide, I'll give you some more details. Thank you. Here you see that the O&M budget cuts really total about 50 million over the FIDA. And the details that are listed here, these programs that are listed represent vital capabilities for the DoD. Many of these programs are congressionally directed, and this has obviously attracted a lot of attention from congressional members on the Hill. Next slide, please. Specifically to our RDT&E, our research programs that have been identified for cuts and reductions, these cuts will effectively close the university's research capabilities. The details that I list here, CAPE has specifically targeted these programs. And as mentioned, these CAPE budget cuts have attracted a lot of attention from Congress. It's somewhat ironic that many of these USU programs are actively engaged in and actually have proven very vital during this COVID-19 pandemic response. And this kind of highlights the foolishness of some of these cuts that are being proposed, and those involved in proposing these budget cuts is really detrimental to readiness. I think it was the chairman, General Milley, who said it best when he said that CAPE has done more to damage our national defense than Al-Qaeda. Of note, tomorrow on the 4th of August, there'll be a SASC, Senate Armed Service Committee confirmation hearing on the CAPE director, Mr. Whitley. Next slide, please. Another CAPE-led cut against the university here has been the removal of our Building F MILCON project from the FIDA. As you may recall, last summer, the comptroller ordered removal of this project based on some false information. After that had been done, we were not informed for a couple months. And in August of last year, Ms. McAndrew called for a follow-up meeting, and she had been told that this was a conference center. She was not aware that this was a research and education center. And so this project really has passed the 65% milestone for its design. It's essentially a shovel-ready project. And it was #1 on the non-clinical projects as far as the capital investment decision model list. And if I can go to the next slide, Jeff. We'll talk a little bit about the way forward. We've had Mr. Rick Bond, who's our facilities lead for this effort. He's been working to try to help get this project back into the POM. We do need to have some DHA facilities assistance, and in the past, the DHA director has been very supportive in working with us on this project. It is vital. As you know, this project is vital to the future of the university for the education and research efforts that we have ongoing. It's a significant upgrade to our 1970s era facilities here, and we need the additional space to increase our class sizes in the School of Medicine and the GSN specifically. Next slide, please. For the next time that we can have the board here visiting the university, we have a project model on display in the lobby of this building, Building A. You'll be able to see, I think, firsthand the scale of this new project. We're going to continue to try to get this thing back on track. This is, as I mentioned, is modern classrooms and laboratories which are necessary for the research and education mission of the university, and upgrading our legacy buildings that are here. Next slide, please. Dr. Woodson, ladies and gentlemen, I do want to give just a couple minutes and spend some time on the university's response and our efforts in collaboration during this pandemic in the research areas. This shows some of the vital capabilities the university has brought to the enterprise. There's a list a partial list of some of the efforts that we've been involved with here on this slide. The epidemiology, immunology, and clinical characteristics of emerging infectious disease with pandemic potential, or the so-called EPIC slide. Our infectious disease and clinical research program, IDCRP, which is led by Captain Dr. Timothy Burgess, who, by the way, has done a phenomenal job during this pandemic. He has undertaken the first and largest DoD COVID-19 clinical characterization study, which has also been adopted by the VA health system. This is an ongoing project with about 10 military treatment facilities in the study to date. It's prospective longitudinal observation study of MHS beneficiaries involving systematic collection and analysis of clinical, demographic, and lab data, and also clinical specimens. The adaptive COVID-19 treatment trial is also an IDCRP-led effort, multi-center, adaptive, randomized, blinded, controlled trial of the safety and efficacy of investigational therapeutics for the treatment of COVID-19 in hospitalized adults. And remdesivir and other therapeutic agents are being evaluated. The Javits Center study has been undertaken by Army Colonel Dr. Kevin Chung, who's the chair of our Department of Medicine in the School, Department of Medicine in the School of Medicine, and Lieutenant Colonel Travis Clifton from BAMC in San Antonio. And they're doing an analysis here of the prevalence of antibodies in military personnel who were deployed to New York at the Javits Center in support of the pandemic. The next bullet down is response. As you can see there, the rapid evaluation and study of the pandemic outbreak nationally by sustaining and leveraging prolonged field care research efforts. This includes the following studies: blood purification trial, pulmonary ultrasound, biomarkers, a number of things. Dr. Chung is also leading this one and working in collaboration with other organizations. We're appreciative to the $15 million grant that he just received from the DHA for this effort. A number of our faculty joined international efforts to define it, the genetic determinants of susceptibility to severe COVID-19 infection. And specifically, Dr. Andrew Snow, who's the Associate Professor of Pharmacology and Molecular Therapeutics, and Dr. Cliff Dalgard, who's Associate Professor, Department of Anatomy, Physiology, and Genetics. And he's also the Director for the American Genomics Center here at the USU. They've joined with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the NIH in this effort. And then I've got towards the bottom here, National Center for Disaster Medicine and Public Health. That's Dr. Tom Kirsch, who leads that center. And he's been funded to conduct a 2-year project to assess the capacity of the National Disaster Medical System. The COVID-19 practice management guidelines, the team did a great job here collaboratively. Dr. Chung as the lead, but input from many others in developing those clinical practice or practice management guidelines, which have been shared across the DoD and also in non-federal agencies. And this is an ongoing effort as they modify that product through the time of this pandemic. Finally, I put a bullet down here about one of our USU medical students who helped to really lead the way on developing a COVID-19 airway management isolation chamber. He's already received FDA approval and patent for it. He's working with a number of folks, faculty here at Walter Reed and also at Fort Belvoir and Madigan Army Medical Center at JBLM. And I think it's just a great thing that a young medical student led the effort there. And this is really a great tool to use to prevent cross-contamination from COVID-positive patients. Next slide, please. I want to make mention here of the USU After Action Report. Back in March of 2020, we began our COVID-19 After Action Report in this process at the university. We're focused on really what happened, why did it happen, what were the results, what lessons have we learned from this. And I've asked Dr. Charles Rice and Dr. Dale Smith to lead that effort, and they've done a great job in compiling lessons learned for the group. And they've also helped to contribute into the military health system-wide AAR. In April, Mr. McCaffrey asked me to lead that MHS-wide AAR, and we've put the group together. All the services, the DHA, Health Affairs, everyone's involved in this, and it's it's been a good process to date. I want to give a shout out specifically to Dr. Colin Chin and Dr. Chris Shoemaker, who have helped lead this effort and working with the team. The executive committee and also the lower level coordination committees have come together. On the 20th of this month, we'll update the senior leadership, the ASD, the Surgeons General, the DHA director, everyone involved on where we are to date. This is an ongoing an effort, obviously. We expect to have an interim report in early September. Next slide, please. This after action review for the MHS is really composed of 4 tasks. You see listed here: state of readiness of the MHS, the data collection and analysis, which we've got up to date at this point, and then the face-to-face leader AAR, which will occur on about the 20th of August. And then our formal report, which will come at a later date. As you know, since the pandemic is ongoing, this will be a living document, which we'll be updating periodically. Our goal here is process improvement, as with any AAR, and help us to prepare for the next round and the ongoing challenges that we see with this COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide, please. As for the university, I think it's important to stress here that the university never closed. We've been open for business, and I think we've done a pretty good job here of really protecting our folks, being smart about how we're doing things. And as far as our return to campus plan, you can see some of the highlights here. We developed a phased approach to this, and we're currently in phase 2. Now, this is conditions based, so we may go back if conditions direct that. But if conditions are met, we expect to move forward into phase 3, probably in mid-August or so, something like that. But this is what phase 2 looks like. You see some of the highlights here on this slide. We've been very methodical about our approach here. The phase changes, as I mentioned, are conditions-based, and we monitor them carefully. I'm proud to say that we continue to improve our capabilities in support of the education and research missions. We've had multiple folks here at the university that have been tested positive, but we've had no one end up in the ICU to date. And we want to continue that trend if at all possible. The staff, the faculty, the students here have really done an exceptional job, been very smart about this. And as we talk about it here, for the university, we are the DoD's healthcare university, and we want to be the model for efficiency and effectiveness on defeating this virus. And so we're going to continue to be vigilant as we go forward and do the smart and right thing for our teammates here. Next slide, please. Jeff, can you go to the next slide? Thank you. This is my last slide. I just want to give awareness to the board of an upcoming event in September. As you see here, the 18th, this will be our 48th year. We're marking our 48th year with the Founders Day. And I think what we've done here is we've asked Dr. Deborah Burks to be our guest speaker for the ceremony. You see the timeline, the tentative timeline here. Hopefully we'll be able to do some of this face-to-face, but we'll be prepared to do it virtually, of course, depending on conditions in the fall. I want to finalize my comments here, just saying I've just marked my 4th year as your USU president. It's been an honor and privilege to serve. I'm deeply appreciative of the support, not only from our board members here, but so many others. We have, as you know, we have a big fan base for the university here, especially during these challenging times highlighted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the CAPE-led budget assaults against the university. I appreciate your ongoing support to the university. Thank you very much. So pending any additional questions that you may have for me, this concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thomas. Are there any questions or comments for Dr. Thomas?
Yeah, I have one, Mr. Chairman, and maybe this is something we talk about in executive session. If I may, I got 1 minute to ask.
Absolutely, please.
So this after action review that we're doing, that coupled with the cuts Dr. Thomas at CAPE has given, has anybody really looked at, either you or Secretary McCaffrey, about doing what I would consider a quadrennial review of the military health system on the basis of everything that the military health system has been asked to do during this pandemic, as well as where we're going forward with the chairman and Secretary of Defense's push for multi-domain operations against a peer competitor, but I don't say near peer anymore. To me, this reminds me of the review we had to do after Building 18 at Walter Reed, and we had so much shortages across the board, and those seeds of shortages were sown back in the 90s after Desert Storm when all these budget cuts came in. Is someone doing a deep dive to set this up and looking 5 years in the future and saying, you know, if we have to send the Mercy or Comfort 5 years from now, are we going to have enough people to man it? And what happens to our military bases at the same time? Over.
Yeah, so this is Tom McCaffrey, General Cody. So a couple of things. As Dr. Thomas mentioned, the health system is doing its own after-action review, which will indeed identify anything that we have learned from the pandemic with regard to the health system, meaning its resourcing, its structure. Is it set up to be able to support simultaneously, the most taxing O plan, as well as if we were to concurrently have another pandemic. But also the department as a whole is doing the same process in terms of a kind of a lessons learned. And the Joint Staff is very much involved in that kind of with the look that you identified. What have we learned from the pandemic response, and does that require the department to kind of rethink or revise anything, not just with the health system, but the overall department setup?
Well, thank you, Secretary McCaffrey. That's great. I would just opine, again, I'm getting old, but I do have scar tissue. One thing I learned from looking at the Walter Reed piece when we did the huge BRAC, and that is when dealing with military medicine, we cannot create overnight nurses, doctors, clinicians, as well as jumpstart the research at Dietrich and other places, of which also we relied on USUs for research and development. You can't jumpstart that overnight the day after a crisis. And I hope someone is doing the second and third order effects looking forward, because we could find ourselves short here 6 years from now based upon these cuts that I've seen. Over.
Yeah, and the larger context, General Cody, is the Secretary, at a DoD-wide look, is also trying to respond to, COCOMs and each of the military departments in terms of their priorities, their requirements looking forward in terms of resourcing their modernization efforts. And so it's that issue of where you have, finite top line, where do you allocate those resources? And I think the pandemic is causing the department to be, I think, a little bit more sensitive in terms of where does the health system come to play in those responses, and how do we factor that in making kind of final resource decisions?
Well, thank you very much. And Chairman, thank you for allowing me to, I've been watching this closely, and I've watched some of the budget stuff on the Hill. And Secretary McCaffrey, I appreciate what you're doing. I offer myself up. I'm not a doctor, but I have a lot of experience in gaining and maintaining combat readiness for the nation. So I offer myself up if anybody wants to pick my brain before I get too old.
Well, thank you, General Cody. That's why you're on the board, and we appreciate your experience and your insight and challenging us to think more broadly. So we do appreciate that. I think that's
Mr.
segue. Go ahead. Yes, please.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, it's Sheila Burke. If I might, just a moment, underscore the comments that were just made, but also observe one of the other things that's occurring at the moment, and it's currently being led by Senator Alexander, but it gives us an indication, and that is the analysis of what to do going forward, exactly to your point, that we're in the midst of the crisis, they're dealing with the crisis, but Alexander's leading an effort to think about what do we do next time? How do we prepare? How do we avoid some of the issues? And very much the point that you're raising about the time necessary to essentially stand up There are questions about research taking place and what it takes to reinitiate research that's been set aside during this period of time. But similarly with human assets and with resources. And it would seem to me the suggestion being made that we really give thought to essentially dealing with the current problem, but also give serious thought and ask others to give serious thought. How do we essentially plan for the future? And that, in this case, requires not an overnight response, but rather an analysis of what occurred, what we could have done differently, and how it is that we plan for the future, and how we anticipate needing resources in the time necessary. So I think the point made, I'm simply suggesting, is a very good point, and one that at least some on the Hill are at least beginning to think about, and that is, what do we do to anticipate and plan for and be prepared for that what will be another event similar, hopefully not as serious, but another event.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Yeah, more to come. And, there's a deep need to, as I say, innovate through this crisis so that we are better prepared and we come out better and stronger at the other end, but not to make precipitous changes that will harm us in the future. So thanks to both of you for your comments. This is actually a great segue then into the Honorable McCaffrey's report. So we'll move over to Secretary McCaffrey's report at this time.
Great, thanks, Dr. Woodson. I'm not going to go through every item that I identified in my short health system update memo, but just call out a handful of items. Obviously, I think as we've reported in the past, probably since February, much of the health system has been, all day, every day, focused on supporting the department's effort on the pandemic response. One of the areas I think I do want to call out where there's obviously, each of the services, many parts of OSD, USU, very much involved in the R&D effort. Back in April, when the department received from the CARES Act about $10 billion for, COVID-specific resourcing needs, Secretary Esper actually directed over $900 million of that to accelerate the efforts we already had underway in research in both for COVID vaccine candidates, as well as therapeutics. And because of that acceleration directive and the additional resources, we were able to add 2 additional vaccine candidates to the department's list of what we're looking at, as well as a number of additional therapeutics. And actually, one of our vaccine candidates, I can't say which one at this point, but it's very possible that one of ours will be later this month, could be starting phase 3 clinical trials. So that's very, very good news. On the therapeutic side, we, along with others, are looking at, the potential use on the prophylactic and post-exposure treatment side, COVID convalescent plasma. So we've joined research protocols by the Mayo Clinic as well as Johns Hopkins. And while we, like others, are using convalescent plasma for treating seriously ill patients, meaning hospitalized, ICU, we're also doing the research on is there potential use of plasma in developing therapeutic products. Again, that could be used for short-term prophylactic purposes or post-exposure treatment. And obviously, very key for us in terms of military requirements that kind of treatment could greatly inform and change the way we are able to manage readiness and manage mission essential requirements during a pandemic. So those are also very encouraging. And again, it's a direct result of being able to direct congressional support in terms of resources and accelerate our efforts on that front. As I think everyone knows, the our response and what's been required of the health system to support the department's response on COVID has put a number of other initiatives, on a pause. It's again, since February, we were, all in on supporting the department. That caused a pause on our continued deployment of our electronic health record, MHS Genesis. But the good news now is we are going to start that redeployment. So we had our first two waves over 2017 and 2019, and we will be re-engaging now with the Coast Guard in California at the end of August, and then our next DoD wave will be an additional 7 sites in September. So we feel that we've done well in terms of learning lessons from the initial deployment, and we believe we're well positioned to continue and kind of restart that. The COVID also required the department to make a decision to pause the MTF transition for 90 days. That pause ended last month, and what we're doing now is, as Dr. Thomas indicated, there's a couple of lines of effort happening. We're doing an MHS-wide after-action report, as well as anything that we're hearing from the services with regard to their experience thus far in the pandemic to determine are there any things that we'd want to consider doing in terms of revising our transition implementation plan. And those decisions will be teed up this month. We'll have a better sense of the way forward on the MTF transition. And I know one of the other initiatives that has great interest on the part of the board, and that is each of the services proposed military medical manpower reductions. I believe in my last report to everybody, I shared with you that in NDA 20, Congress directed the department, or in essence required the department to not proceed with any of the repurposing or reductions of these billets until submission of a report back to Congress that did a number of things. Each of the military departments were required to provide its analysis that indicated, what their operational medical requirements were, and that they could be carried out even with the proposed repurposing. We had to identify, each military department had to identify the specific billet and at which MTF they were proposing for reduction. And then most importantly, we had to identify how the health system would maintain access to care in terms of implementing those reductions over the FIDIP. So that report has been completed, and if it hasn't already been submitted to OMB, it will be this week, and then the next stop would be to submit that to Congress. I will say that the department in the report in submitting this to Congress is clearly indicating that the implementation, timing, and scope really will be contingent upon the ability of the health system, to implement things in a way to maintain access. And obviously that could be very, very impacted by any existing or continuing pandemic implications on either our health system or, frankly, the private sector health system that we would need to partner with in terms of access to care. And then on that, on the House side of NDA 21, the House has actually included a provision that would further pause for another year the department doing anything in terms of medical manpower reductions. So we will be monitoring that to see what happens in conference. But those are some of the highlights, and happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments for Secretary McCaffrey? Over. Well, hearing none, thank you very much, Secretary McCaffrey, for that report. I know there's a lot going on and a lot yet to be determined. If there are no further questions for Secretary McCaffrey, we will then move on to Dean Kellerman and his report on the School of Medicine.
Dr. Kellerman, real quick before you jump in, Dr. Woodson, as far as I just wanted to make a note, as far as you have a couple other folks that came on since we did the intros. You have Captain Joel DeLay, who's representing the U.S. Surgeon General, as well as Admiral Erica Schwartz, and as far as Jim Hancock, so who's the medical officer of the Marine Corps. So Admiral Hancock and Admiral Schwartz both are alumni, and Captain DeLay as well. So just wanted to let you know that they're on as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dean Kellerman.
Dr. Woodson, thank you for the opportunity. Before I briefly segue into the School of Medicine report, I just want to offer a couple of passing personal observations. One, again, my sincere thanks to the board for your unwavering support for this university and its unique mission. I think USU is needed more today than at any time in its history. And as we look at issues like a Building B construction project, I'd like you to imagine for a moment how military health would have performed had we not developed this school roughly 50 years ago and had the graduates not played the roles that they have played over that period of time. So the investment in a place, in buildings, in labs, and resources have paid off 100, even 1,000 times over for the American military and for our projection and maintenance of power. And I hope that that thought will be carried forward in the years to come. Second, I totally understand the Department of Defense's desire and need to address military modernization. As an individual who spent 7 years in the system, I would respectfully point out that the more sophisticated our military technology becomes, the more critical the human operator becomes. Dr. Travis, for one, can comment about the number of pilots and crew members required to put bombs on target or near target in World War II. That can be done with greater effect and greater damage by one aircraft with 2 crew members today than an entire bomber wing in World War II. That means the health of those 2 pilots and that system is absolutely vital. The same is true in the Navy, the same is true in the Army, the same is true in the Marine Corps. And so if we're serious about the ultimate weapons system of the US military being the individual warrior, we better be serious about his or her health care, his or her fitness, his or her human performance, and his or her resilience and that of their family. Second, in terms of Building B, I was present in the Pentagon the day that the Deputy Controller made the comment that she thought that Building B was a conference center. And at that day, I pointed out that while betting on a MILCON project, building a hospital near a troop concentration and trying to project out what'll be needed 50 years from now, that's a pretty tough bet. In recent years, we've had MTFs come online with operating rooms, and by the time the facility was built, either the troops had moved away or the mission had changed, and now it's going to be an outpatient facility and those operating rooms aren't needed. I can assure you that Building F, this military, however it develops or transforms, is going to need high-performing health officers who will go anywhere in the world for any reason, for any mission, at any time, and that the threats that we face in health protection in the future may be very different than those today. So the resources, the laboratories, the classrooms, the distance learning capabilities of a Building F will be needed in any future military that this country may put on the field here or around the world. And I do hope at the end of the day that Cape, the controller, and those making the decisions will think a little more broadly than the next weapons acquisition. My 2 bits. Moving into the report very briefly, because we have a presentation to make. First, I do want to acknowledge, as you saw in the report for the School of Medicine, the loss of one of our medical students. And there's nothing more tragic or devastating than that. Ensign John Grider, who is a well-beloved member of the School of 21, U.S. Naval Academy grad from 2010, who had served on a nuclear submarine, the USS Louisville, prior to coming to USU, died in a tragic accident on July the 2nd. 5 days later, his classmates and others at the university honored him around the country with a number of last roll call ceremonies, and we will do more in the weeks and the months to come. He would have graduated with the class of 21 next spring, and he was set to do a family medicine residency. So he did more service for this country in 10 years than most of us do in a lifetime. But we deeply regret his loss and the loss of him to the mission, to military families, and to our warriors in the years to come. Because life doesn't stop, we are actually starting orientation of our class of 2024 today, and I'll be addressing the class at 1300 this afternoon. So we will move forward, but we will never forget Ensign Grider and all he brought to his class and to this university. Second, I do encourage all of you to look over the report. I'm not going to do the typical walk through the key bullets, but it is an extraordinary report and just, again, reinforces the incredible caliber of our faculty, our staff, and our students. They make this place, and they will continue to do a phenomenal job under Lou Pangaro's leadership and ultimately the next dean that you select. All I did was stay out of their way. They're the ones who've made everything happen over the last 7 years. Finally, in the remaining few minutes we have for the School of Medicine, we did want to go back and really look at one of the silver linings in the dark cloud of COVID, which is that it has dramatically accelerated our embrace and application of distance learning or distributed learning. We were fortunate that when it happened, two things purely by luck had transpired. One, we had stood up a distance learning laboratory, and you're going to hear from the two architects of that lab in a moment. And second, that the first module that we had to roll out the door with no notice was the only module that had embraced distance learning the year before, neuroscience. That bought time for the other modules to begin to reprogram all of their lectures, all of their small groups, and all of their instruction to DL. Our SIM Center, Pediatrics, Family Medicine, and Psychiatry rapidly pivoted and developed teleoskies, basically using telehealth to model the history and the physical exam for our medical students. Anatomy went from dissection to prosection, meaning they pre-dissected the cadavers, and we were able to maintain social distancing in the lab and much more reliance on digital imagery. And we are hopefully currently going to get the green light for a very sophisticated online digital anatomy instruction. And we're working with Tim Rapp and our IT colleagues today to get DoD's green light for that. And USMLE nationally helped us and other schools by allowing for the remote administration of what we fondly call shelf exams, which are rigorous standardized exams to measure the knowledge and acquisition of students in the preclinical clerkships. The forced recall of students posed major challenges, but the clinical departments also pivoted quickly and developed a number of DL courses and offerings. Our students were here for about 2.5 or 3 months, but they got back to the MTFs on 22 June, and to this day, none of them have converted positive for coronavirus, and they are taking care of patients. They're getting great instruction in our MTFs, and I cannot speak highly enough of our national faculty for making that happen. So we anticipate that these changes and the support that we give our national faculty through our now operational self-service site that allows our IT department and our Office of Academic Affairs to support our national faculty at MTFs around the country. We intend to continue that without diminution even after the pandemic abates, because we will have a far broader reach. What I'd like to do in the few minutes we have left is allow two of our superstar medical educators, Steve Durning, who is one of the nation, really the world's leading experts in health professions education, and his colleague Ron Severo, who prior to coming to USU 3 years ago, directed all of distance learning for the University of Georgia, to talk about the DL lab, the work that they did during coronavirus, and DL instruction going forward for the MHS across the country and across the world. So I'll hand it over to Steve and to Ron.
Thank you, Dean Kellerman. This is Ron Severo, and I know Steve and I are both really excited to be part of the effort to provide high quality education to the physicians around the world. So if you can go to the next slide, Jeff. So as Dean Kellerman mentioned, the DL lab was stood up in 2019, and our efforts there really focused on building out existing distance learning programs for part-time learners at duty stations around the globe. Those were global health and tropical medicine certificates, as well as our graduate program in health professions education, where we offered degrees and certificates. On March 16th, of course, the School of Medicine transitioned to distance learning. And so we have now, after the neuroscience module, we have now transitioned GI and the reproduction endocrinology modules. Of course, with the faculty, they're doing all the work. We're just collaborating and supporting them. And we are now working on the transitioning of all the remaining pre-clerkship modules, such as CPR. We're doing this with 3 modalities. We're offering 2 workshops per week and distance learning. We have many, many individual and group consultations with our faculty to record lectures, build Sakai sites, help them learn how to use Zoom and Google to enable engagement with their learners. And finally, we have a self-service website that faculty can use at any time. Finally, we, with the clerkship students that were brought back to campus, the graduate program in health professions education provided courses in teaching methods and curriculum development and leadership and assessment. But I really want to focus on where we're going forward. So Jeff, can you please move to the next slide? So I'd say we have really 6 initiatives we're working on. And of course, when you think of distance learning, you think of access, but the other animating principle for the efforts that we are undertaking is engagement. And that is in helping faculty and learners engage, since that is the heart of education. And so our first initiative is to collaborate with module directors and faculty for the remaining pre-clerkship modules that we expect to be offered by distance learning through the rest of the academic year. And we have done our first clerkship work with the ICU rotation in the 4th year. So we're really excited about that. Secondly, we've collaborated with Dr. Survey in the faculty development office, since in lieu of her faculty development trips around the country, we've helped her produce 5 podcasts for our national faculty to continue to improve their efforts and their leadership. Our third initiative that we're really excited about is the Introduction to Military Medicine. The goal of that course is to prepare the HPSP students to understand the roles and responsibilities of military medicine and the work of the physicians in the field. So we are collaborating with faculty in the Department of Military and Emergency Medicine. We have a module ready to field test. We're recruiting HPSP students right now. We expect to have about 10 students from each service. And they're going to tell us how this is working for them and how we can improve it before we go to a full-scale course development. Fourth, DL is not just about preparing faculty, it's also helping learners and students be successful. So on next Wednesday, we're going to be preparing all 182 incoming medical students with 90-minute workshops on how to be successful in the distance learning space. And tomorrow, we're also orienting the 19 new graduate students in the graduate school for distance learning. Our fifth initiative is we continue to support part-time learners around the globe with our certificate programs in global health. We have 182 learners starting in the fall in a couple of weeks. We continue to work with tropical medicine and of course our HPE graduate program. And finally, distance learning is not just something you do one time. It needs to continue to improve and maintain. And so in order to provide quality instruction for all of our students, in the HPE graduate program, we've adopted a course review process where we continue to refresh and review all of our courses using a national standard of the Online Learning Consortium. And now that we've developed that and reviewed all of our courses in HPE, we expect to expand that effort to all of the other instruction that we are doing by distance in the School of Medicine. So that ends my presentation. Dean Kellerman, do you have anything to add or amplify?
The only additional point I would make is that in this pilot course on the textbook of military medicine, we are both working very closely with the Joint Staff Surgeon and the COCOM commanders, but also very importantly with the GME directors and HPSP directors and content experts for the services. So this is something that we want to create that meets the needs of the Army, Navy, and Air Force Medical Corps to help ensure that when HPSP students come into GME and new GME learners get the basics of military medicine and leadership early, and to help build that teamwork that's so important between USU and the HPSP program. So this is not a USU only initiative. We're just developing a pilot framework and we'll work hand in glove with the services to refine it. Over. Thank you all. That concludes our presentation, subject to any questions.
Thank you, Dean Kellerman. That's a very important initiative to grow not only medical officers, but military officers, and make sure that they are fully indoctrinated and prepared to assume their roles as military officers and leaders. So thank you for your efforts in that regard. We are going to, are there any comments or questions for Dean Kellerman? If there are none, we're going to move on to Dr. Seibert giving the Graduate School of Nursing report. Over to Dr. Seibert.
All right, thank you very much. There's a lot of information in the briefing, but I'll cover the highlights here. Move to the next slide, Jeff, for me, please. Thank you. So overall, we've been transitioning in and out of these various phases without any significant disruption. Our telework and online classes are continuing. As the School of Medicine has commented, it's been an interesting period of time in terms of lifting and shifting to online. But we've been doing all of that, and everything is on time as much as we can keep it there. The GSN also had a series of wellness initiatives, both for the students and for the faculty. Starting in about March, we had a faculty wellness challenge. So people were competing with each other in terms of the number of exercise activities, running, walking, meditation, and the dean kept winning. So we're starting another one where we're going to put people in pairs, and so she doesn't win all the time. So anyway, our research and scholarship, despite some challenges, is continuing without huge disruption. And then we're continuing. We have faculty and staff positions to fill, and we've pivoted to a completely virtual sort of interview process, and those people that are coming in for faculty positions that have to present. It's a hybrid. It's available online, but there are some people coming into campus. One of the other pieces just to note is that I meet regularly twice a year with the deputy corps chiefs, and we had our summer meeting virtually the other day. The faculty all came to USU and maintained distance just to be together, the program chairs and myself. But it's been, I wanted to shout out to the nursing deputy corps chiefs. They've been at the beginning part of the pandemic experience. I set up a series of weekly program huddles, and almost all the services, almost every time, would come in and join us for about an hour each week, listening to what was happening as we were transitioning into this new world. So kudos to them. And that was very helpful. So yeah, next slide, Jeff. Just a few things of note related to the educational world. Every one of our students, 100% first-time certification pass rate. We were waiting for the last few students. They got hung up in, some of them were preparing to take their certification exam as COVID hit, and the testing centers closed down. So there were some interesting challenges there, but we have 100% first-time pass rate for all of our APRN students. One of the things that this group may not have been aware of, but last year we pilot tested a new curriculum where we clustered. So we took a 16-week semester and we basically cut it in half and moved content to the front and then to the back. That sort of random event, much like the neuroscience module that you had done, transitioned last year, that curriculum adjustment worked beautifully because in the spring as COVID hit, we were just getting ready, we were finishing up one block and entering another. So we only had to lift up one block of content and transform that rather than having to transform normally about 7 courses to a DL model. So that worked really well. Last year also, just so this group knew, the PhD program converted from the quarter system to the semester system. And so that was so both of our major degree granting groups were under major revision last year. Fortunately, we were finishing most of that as COVID hit. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of collaborations, particularly with the CRNA students. There's a collaboration with University of Pennsylvania that we're working right now. One of the other consequences of COVID was Bushmaster moving from October into the springtime, which left our October a bit of a gap. So we moved the military sexual trauma course, which normally is conducted in the spring. We moved that into the fall for the nursing students. And I mentioned in one of those program director huddles that we were going to probably lose our School of Medicine and B3 students that normally join us because their schedule couldn't accommodate that shift. And so I mentioned in a huddle that we would like some other interprofessional learners if we could find some. And the Army connected us with the PA community. So we have some PA students that will be joining us virtually for the simulation event for that military sexual trauma course. And then the high-level disinfection, there's a course that's been going on for 5 years here at USU, and it's been open now for the last 4 years to the large community. There's 100 seats, and there's usually about 45 people waiting in a waiting list. And that normally is offered just once a year. And this year they're offering a second iteration out on the West Coast. So we hope to be offering that in the fall, again, COVID pending. Jeff, next slide. Just some high-level information. I didn't put the 2020s on here. As you are all aware, we accelerated graduation by 6 weeks, and our 2020 students graduated on April 1st. The NPs, the CRNAs had to wait a couple more weeks because of accreditation issues, but our students graduated, and then we had to figure out how to get them to their gaining MTFs from their phase 2 sites. So they're all out finally and working in their phase 2 environments. The class of 2021, the anesthesia students were in their phase 2 environments. The NP students were en route to their phase 2 environments. They were supposed to detach on 1 April, and they got stuck. So we had a lot of ETPs, and so thank you, Dr. Thomas and the whole brigade for helping us get them out of here. We're monitoring their total clinical hours and experiences as as clinics begin to reopen and they're allowing students to come in. The class of 22 was here with us, and fortunately, they were the ones that experienced the full DL transition, and now we've got most of them out in clinical. We had to pay attention to the quarantine issues and which MTFs were green and what states were green, so that was interesting getting them out TDY. The class of 2023, their original orientation start date was 27 April. That didn't work. Their original class date was May 18th. That didn't work. So they started orientation on 1 July and started class on 6 July. So they are curricularly 6 weeks delayed. And while we hope to catch up, we may have a delayed graduation for at least some of the students, again, due to accreditation issues. So they're an interesting cohort. They're off cycle, but at least they're in class and doing, again, like the School of Medicine mentioned, sort of the prosected anatomy model. And we're figuring out how to do the health assessment course, the physical assessment course, maintaining physical distancing where possible or wearing appropriate PPE. And then there's a Pulse article that one of our PhD students was interviewed for, and that was published in early May, I think, that talked about some of the challenges she had. She was in dissertation phase. Everybody's moving forward, but there were some significant challenges for students in the data collection phase of their with human subjects and their PhD. Next slide, Jeff. I think maybe. Yeah, this is the last slide. I just wanted to share with you some admission demographics of the class of 2023. They're a little bit smaller of a cohort. They're 55 APRNs and 3 PhDs, 50-50 male-female. And I want to point that out because in nursing, In graduate school, it's about 11% male. And so this is pretty reflective of, I think, the military nursing workforce. A lot of prior enlisted, service members coming through in our graduate programs. So we have it's a fun community because of that balance. About 40% of them had earned a master's degree of one kind or another prior to admission. They were not APRNs, but they had had a healthcare administration, things like that. We were dead even for distribution by service, all three services. And here's the, some rank demographics. And then the ethnicity graph is really kind of interesting. If you take the 2019, I think maybe it was the 2017 military demographics, and you superimpose that on top of this slide, we're pretty close in terms of our class and in terms of representing the various ethnic and minority racial groups in the United States. So pending questions, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seibert. Are there any comments or questions for Dr. Seibert? Obviously, it's been a challenging year, and my thanks goes out to you and Dean Romano and all of the professors for making all of the adjustments that were necessary to graduate the class and then accept the new class coming in.
Thank you, sir.
If there are no questions or comments for Dr. Seibert, let's move on to Dr. Schneid and post-dental college report.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. I'll happy to share the highlights of my report that are listed in my full report, but I'm going to divide my comments into four areas. I'll start with students. And this year we were pleased to be able to graduate 78 military dental residents that completed their specialty training, along with completing their requirements for a USU Master's of Science in Oral Biology degree. They were appropriately recognized, but certainly in 7 non-traditional ceremonies. And in the picture that you see on the slide, that was the ceremony showing appropriate physical distancing at Keesler Air Force Base, and there were actually no families in attendance in order to maintain proper distancing. As of note, these were the final ceremonies to be held at Keesler, in that the master's location at Keesler, the master's Master of Science training, is now formally closed. So we are down to 7 locations where training takes place in the postgraduate dental college for Masters of Science degree training. So with those 78 graduates, that brings us to a total of 547 Masters of Science degrees awarded since the inception of the postgraduate dental college in 2010. Training continues in that we admitted 72 Masters of Science students, and they have now all matriculated. The Army and the Air Force started their training on 1 July, and so they have been in training for about a month now. And the Navy started their program today. They elected to kind of push out a month in order to make sure that they had everybody on board so that they could start their training. But as was previously mentioned, they fully anticipate that it's possible to make up that time during the course of their 2 or 3 year programs, and that we may very well be able to bring the graduation back to on time at a 30 June graduation date for those students for the Navy. In addition, the 1-year certificate programs that are conducted by the 3 services continue, and 164 of those students completed training this month and actually in July. And there are 175 students that will be starting in August or early in the fall for the 3 services. And for those programs, Uniform Services University offers an academic support relationship, but not a degree. Next slide, please, Dr. Longacre. Moving on to research, we've been able to make a great deal of progress and strides in our research, and some of our student research has become recognized nationally, and as you can see by the picture on the right-hand side, actually internationally. And that features one of our resident research projects in a publication on the cover of the International Endodontic Journal. And it's not one of this year's graduates, but it's a prior year's graduate. But our research is becoming very well recognized throughout the national, international dental communities. As of highlight for this year, I showed two students that were recognized by their services. They're 2020 graduates. And from the Navy, there's Lieutenant Commander Carrie Bauman, and her research was conducted on the distribution of human tongue fat and obstructive sleep apnea. And she conducted that in collaboration with some of her medical colleagues. In addition to being recognized for her research at her graduation ceremony, she was also awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal for the Chief of the Navy Dental Corps Award for excellence due to her superior performance as a graduating resident. The Air Force student that was recognized was Major Bracken Smith, and his research was targeted endodontic microsurgery implications for the greater palatine artery, showing how that surgery can be safely accomplished to preserve dentition and avoid vital anatomic structures. Very good project that he conducted as well. The Army Award winner is actually named later in the summer due to the fact that they have 4 locations, and I hope to report on that at our next meeting. Another research symposium of note was that's conducted in San Antonio is the San Antonio Military Health System and Universities Research Forum. It's conducted out at the University of Texas, UTSA, and our students in San Antonio at Lackland are able to participate in that. So it was a local meeting, and they did that virtually, of course, but they had 5 oral presentations and 3 posters that were featured at that meeting. In addition, we have our Associate Dean for Dental Research has been active both in involvement with multiple USU committees, primarily COVID related for contingency planning. And he's also actively involved with contingency planning for trying to kind of anticipate research requirement completion for our students, our military students, in the event of future pandemic type events, so that our research can be brought to a conclusion at the same concurrently with the conclusion of their residency programs. Next slide, please. And next, I'd like to highlight a few events from our faculty. So with our Master's of Science degree locations, along with our support relationship with the PGY1 certificate programs for the military, we now have 401 non-billeted faculty within the postgraduate dental college. And happy to announce that the newly appointed Navy Dental Corps Chief was recently received a faculty appointment within the postgraduate dental college. The distribution that you see in the pie chart to the right on this slide shows our faculty breakdown, and as would be expected, the predominant number of faculty that we have are in the assistant professor range. What has turned out to be a very great relationship for the postgraduate dental college and a great benefit to the military services is the increasing participation in the Uniformed Service University graduate health professions education. And we have really enjoyed expanding our relationship and close working relationships with Drs. Durning and Severo, and with some of the initiatives that they recently spoke about. And we've increased our presence in their programs, and we now have 1 PhD student enrolled, one of our faculty, 4 of our faculty enrolled in their Master of Science in Health Professions Education program, and with 1 still to apply, And we have 8 enrolled in their what's called their Getting Started program, and some of those may go on to degree-seeking programs in the future. In addition to what we've also, our Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs has created a very nice program in dental faculty development. It's an online course. And what's the initiative that's going on now in collaboration with Dr. Durning and Dr. Severo's team is that we're linking our faculty development course to their Getting Started program, which we hope will expand our presence in their initiatives. In addition, we've had some other nice accomplishments where we've been able to continue a relationship with the American Dental Education Association and sponsor 3 of our faculty to attend the Institute for Teaching and Learning Faculty Leadership course. We've had an Air Force oral pathologist deliver a 3-hour virtual oral pathology symposium that was attended by over 50 tri-service attendees throughout the European Command and the continental United States. And as I mentioned with our Associate Dean for Dental Research, our Associate Dean for Faculty Affairs has been very, very active with university committees and working groups regarding faculty affairs and university activities in the COVID and pre-post-COVID world as well. And go to my last slide, please, Dr. Longacre. So just a few additional issues that I'd mention is, as I heard someone mention that with the rescheduling of Bushmaster and Military Field Practicum 101, we are also closely involved with participation with the movement so that we can maintain dental participation in those activities when the final details are worked out. Just a slight mention of our one center that is affiliated with the Postgraduate Dental College, the Tri-Service Center for Oral Health Studies. They've recently deployed the new Department of Defense satisfaction survey that will allow them to report more predictable and better information to 340 plus DOD treatment facilities. And they have also been involved with the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, providing feedback on a recent draft monograph concerning fluoride toxicity. And that supported the U.S. Public Health Service efforts to promote dental representation on that review committee. In addition, our COVID pandemic impact is kind of the summary to date. It did significantly alter clinical operations, but due to the timing of the outbreak, had minimal effect on the class of 2020. However, we do have concerns on our future classes, and especially for our class of 2021. We've been active through our participation with the American Dental Education Association in collaboration with the Commission on Dental Accreditation, which is the dental residencies accreditation bodies. And we expect to get some clarification possibly as early as next week on future guidance for accreditation implications. And predominantly right now, our programs have been resequencing curricula to front load clinical activities while the clinical operations plans develop, hopefully with the easing of the pandemic as the year progresses. And the final issue is that we have been very involved through our faculty and staff through the COVID pandemic campaign plans, the ops plans, and our primary consideration or our primary areas that we have communicated with our service programs out at our military locations are in the area of communications, curriculum modifications, and accreditation. And Dr. Woodson, pending your questions, that concludes my report. Over.
Thank you, Dr. Schneid. Are there any comments or questions for Dr. Schneid and after his report? Well, again, thank you so much for all of the work. And again, I know with all of the disruptions, resequencing curriculum is a difficult task, but it looks like you're doing the right planning. We're going to then transition now to the College of Allied Health Sciences and Dr. Pelayo.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson, and good morning, everyone. The College of Allied Health Sciences is pleased to provide this report to the Board of Regents for the Uniformed Services University of the Health Science. You'll find in tab 2 for the slides, and tab 37 is the board brief. Next slide, please. Under significant issues, the anticipated total matriculation for calendar year 2020 is 2,200 with a current enrollment of 1,196 students in 10 of our programs. This number includes 196 new students since the May 2020 Board of Regents meeting. We had 206 enrollments in July of 2020, in stark comparison to the April monthly enrollment of 26, affected by COVID forced program cancellations and postponements. Our total number of graduates since inception is now 271, and that includes today's 63 approved for August. We currently have 18 programs, including 1 course. These include 15 that are conducted at the Medical Education Training Campus, 1 program at the Medical Center of Excellence, 1 program with 2 tracks at the Navy Medical Forces Support Command, and a 3-semester hour critical care air transport course in Ohio at the United States Air Force School of Aerospace Medicine. During this time, curriculum committee meetings were conducted, including new program development and updating 3 existing programs. This occurs in response to program service required curriculum reviews and updates at the METC. At times, this also occurs as changes to national accreditation requirements are necessary. It's noted that services review every 3 years to those programs that were brought on in the early days of COS and are now up for revision. The COS contributed and participated in the USU-wide COVID-19 planning, preparation, and response efforts after action report. Additionally, weekly updates were provided during the COVID update meetings. Over the past quarter, 6 of our 18 programs with COS required cancellations or postponements, largely due to COVID-induced operational pauses imposed by clinical training capacity restrictions, clinical site closures, as well as travel restrictions. As of July 13th, all training programs are scheduled for or are fully operational. However, clinical restrictions may again be increased with the rise of cases in the greater San Antonio area. The COS is participating with Defense Health Agency 7 Education, Medical Education Training Campus, Medical Center of Excellence, Navy Medical Forces Support Command, and the 59th Medical Wing on 2 lines of effort in response to the COVID-19 crisis. The first level of effort is distributed learning as a service component training command's response to efforts requested by the service chiefs to maximize tactical dispersion, social distancing, physical distance in initial entry training through use of alternate forms of instruction. This DL group has conducted data analysis and indicating a 40% average curriculum visibility for delivery. The second level of effort is working on restrictions to access hospital-based training for phase 2 clinical practicum sites. The working group has reviewed and recommended a charter to the DHA J7 for approval. Next slide, please. Our collaboration continues with the Special Operations Center of Excellence, Joint Special Operations Medical Training Command, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, on their Special Operations Combat Paramedic Program. As mentioned at the May Board of Regents meeting, Colonel Campbell from the Joint Special Operations Medical Training Center at Fort Bragg asked the COS to establish this undergraduate degree granting program in our catalog. They're using the national standard curriculum for the paramedic program and they are accredited with the Committee of Accreditation of Educational Programs for the Emergency Medical Services, referred to as COAMPS, as part of the Commission on Accreditation of Allied Health Education Programs, called CAHEP. The MOA with resource documents is working its way through staffing for signature. At the COS request, USU Accreditation submitted a notification to Middle States Commission on Higher Education declaring the JSOMTC as other instructional site to support this initiative. Note, the COS does have an existing paramedic degree program with the Medical Education Center of Excellence using the same national standard curriculum previously poured by this Board of Regents. Therefore, we're going to be using the same degree plan. A special note, an aside, until now, the existing COS paramedic degree program at the Medco did not have specialized program accreditation. However, in early July, this program received a letter of review status from the Committee on Accreditation of Educational Programs for the Emergency Medical Services, indicating the program was successful in demonstrating adherence to the standards and guidelines for accreditation from CAHEP. It signified eligibility of the program graduates to be admitted to the National Registry of Emergency Medical Technicians Paramedic Credentialing Exam. It's an impressive accomplishment and vital for our students. This will be one more COS MEXI program that'll hold national accreditation. The COS was also invited to participate in a meeting to explore opportunities for collaboration and sharing of best practices for providing academic credit where credit is earned for military service members during transition. The representatives included, among others, the Community College of the Air Force Dean of Academics, the Army University Total Force Integration Division Lead, and the COS leadership team. It was emphasized that the way in which academic credits are determined at the COS and CCAF, as well as the rigor of the curriculum and course developments, are the same. The Army University was consistent in setting up a similar process within their scope of training. Ongoing meetings have now been established to continue sharing of activities, all directed at helping our military service members receive appropriate college credits for the training they undergo while on active duty now required by law. While CCF and Army University will concentrate primarily on non-medical technical career fields, USU has now established itself as a source of college credit for military medical training, as was envisioned years ago. Not on this slide, but of importance, is to mention future areas of interest. The Tri-Service Optician Program is located in Virginia within the Naval Ophthalmic Support and Training Activity Facility on the Naval Weapons Station, Yorktown. The optician program is one of the programs initially requested to be adopted. We're meeting with the Navy Medical Forces Support Command, and if the program meets requirements for an AS degree. One representative will request this as other instructional site. We anticipate this to be in November to the Board of Regents. The Special Operations Center of Excellence at Fort Bragg has also requested the COS develop a degree plan for the Special Forces Medical Sergeant course. This program trains and qualifies selected Army non-commissioned officers in the career-specific portion of Special Forces Qualifications course, teaching them the medical skills necessary to support the Army Special Operations Forces mission. The course is conducted over 16 weeks with the Special Operations Combat Medic course as the prerequisite. Upon preliminary assessment of this program, it appears the program meets the requirements of a bachelor's degree. Additional efforts are the Army Licensed Vocational Nurse, the Veterinary Animal Care Technician, Veterinary Food Inspection Specialist, and Radiation Health in Groton, Connecticut with the IDC submarine. Next slide, please. In accordance with the establishment of new academic programs and as detailed in the supplemental information of this report, this new program is proposed for implementation at the next available iteration. This is the Pharmacy Technician Program. This is an Associate of Science in Health Sciences degree that is open to Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard students. The instruction prepares students to perform inpatient and outpatient pharmacy operations in traditional and non-traditional pharmacy practice settings. Army and Air Force students are initial entry training, reporting from basic training. Navy and Coast Guard students are prior service and must be qualified foremen. The pharmacy technician program is accredited by the American Society of Health System Pharmacists. Graduates of this program are eligible to take the pharmacy technician certification exam and qualify for the designation certified pharmacy technician. This program is currently institutionally affiliated with Air University Community College of the Air Force. Air Force equities with the CCAF have been discussed, so there are no competing interests nor conflicts, thus eliminating possible difficulty in awarding double credits. This program is proposed at 31 semester hours in the major toward the required 60 credits in an associate degree. Phase 1 occurs at the Metsi Branch campus, Fort Sam Houston, and Phase 2 training occurs at the DHA coordinated clinical facility in the San Antonio area. The remaining hours are completed through general education coursework. The projected student load is 351 students. There are no significant current and future concerns at the time of submission. DHA is funding these 3 programs, and there are no significant staffing impact concerns. All documents as mentioned are for staffing. The new academic program requests have been submitted as required. Therefore, it is requested that the Board of Regents concur with the recommendation to implement the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard pharmacy technician programs at the next available iteration, projected to be in October of 2020. We have one other program to present, and that is in accordance again with the establishment of new programs and is detailed in the supplemental information. This program is proposed for implementation its next available iteration. This is the Hospital Carmen Basic. The Hospital Carmen Basic program has been evaluated for inclusion in the cost catalog as requested by the METSI and the Navy and Medical Forces Support Command. The Hospital Carmen Basic program is an introduction to the delivery of medical care and the associated duties of providing quality emergency, nursing, and primary care procedures. This program is proposed at 20 semester hours in a certificate program. Resident training is conducted at the METSI, and the second phase, students transition to clinical training conducted at military treatment facilities, VA, and or civilian hospitals. The Navy refers to this as an A school. The 8 courses contained will provide the foundation upon which all of the Navy programs in COS are built. Examples include public health, neurodiagnostic technician, independent duty corpsman, and pharmacy technician. These are all referred to as Navy C schools. The year 21 projected student load is 3,200 to 4,300 students. There is an MOA pending signature for an October start. Funding is to be determined. We present this program to the Board of Regents so that when funding does happen, the costs will be prepared to support the Hospital Carmen Basic per the Navy request. There are no significant staffing impact concerns. All documents for staffing the new program academic request have been submitted as required. Therefore, we are asking that the Board of Regents concur with the recommendation to implement the Hospital Carmen Basic program at the next available iteration. This concludes my report at this time. Any discussion on the proposed actions?
Thank you very much, Dean Palaio. Could you do me a favor and just recap, are there programs you want the board to vote on at this time? I know you made mention of several programs that are in planning and near implementation stage, but could you recap for me the programs that require the board vote at this time?
Yes, sir. One of those programs is on this slide, and that is the Hospital Carmen Basic.
Okay.
The other program is on the previous slide, and that would be the Pharmacy Technician program. Both of them are.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I wanted to make that clear for the board. The recommendations have been made for approval of these new programs. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, Dr. Woodson.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Those programs are approved. Any additional comments or questions for Dean Kaleo? Okay, hearing none, then we're going to move on to the Armed Forces Radiobiology Research Institute by Colonel Mohammed Naeem. And we want to welcome Colonel Naeem as he has taken over the directorship of this program. So welcome aboard. Over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. Good morning, leaders. I hope everyone can hear me.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the introduction and welcoming me on board. I joined AFRI about 3 weeks ago as the newest team member and AFRI director. So the slide was actually prepared so kindly by my predecessor, Captain Wooten. So I will slightly digress from the contents of the slide. And I'll start with outlining some of the strategic key initiative and goals we like to implement in the next 6 to 12 months in our eventual pursuit of making AFRI a center of excellence for radiobiology research and radiation counter effects by 2024. So in the next 6 to 12 months, I would like to implement a three-pronged approach, starting with the people. The first and foremost goal would be to have open and transparent communication and bidirectional flow of information between the highest level of USU's leadership and the farthest level of AFRI employees. In that front, I would also like to operationally align AFRI's mission with the 21st century national security threats, be it in the urban and asymmetric environments or in a conventional battle space with near-peer adversaries. With that, I'd like to highlight some of the successes we had in the past few weeks since the slides were submitted. And of course, the credit goes to my predecessor, Captain Wooten, for putting them in process. A key issue for us was having only one reactor operator for our research reactor. I am very pleased to report that the hiring actions are taking place as we speak, and we have identified more reactor operators, which will soon be coming on board. I am very thankful to Dr. Thomas and Chief of Staff, Mr. Thompson, for very graciously lending us Admiral Dr. Bruce Dahl as our science director, albeit on a part-time basis. And we are hoping that with Dr. Dahl also on board and working with our scientific and research department will enhance our scientific and research efforts. On the operational side, I am also very pleased to report that the funding has been approved for a SCIF facility in AFRI, which will tremendously enhance our capability to communicate with special operations, other combatant commanders in a secure fashion to better align with their strategic objectives and to help them on CBRNI fronts. Also, we have a new chief of staff inbound. She is in quarantine at this time as she came from Europe, and she is an infectious diseases specialist. So I hope that having infectious diseases specialist on AFRI staff and USUS staff will tremendously enhance our capabilities and USUS expertise in terms of ID. Coming back to some of the actions and next big steps in the next 6 to 12 months, I like to rebrand the image of AFRI and make it more attractive to the younger generation of millennial military officers and millennial budding scientists. We would like to embark upon an effort to redefine the mission statement, enhance the AFRI's website. And though scientists and research are our core assets, we would also like to highlight our other aspects, such as our subject matter operational expertise and education and training, and how we can be useful to the combatant commands and other DoD and federal agencies. Of course, for all of that, we need resources, especially personnel. So as we have the highest level of military and civilian leadership on this phone call, I would like to make a passionate plea to the senior military officers and our highest level of civilian leadership to please send us military officers and medical officers who are smart, enthusiastic, intelligent, and young, and who can embark upon a mission of making AFRI a center of excellence in the next 3 to 4 years. Some of the challenges we face, and we are working on that, is, of course, we have to get our trigger reactor back up for research. And with everything going on board with NRC and with the reactor operator hiring, we are hoping that by September of 2021, we will have the reactor fully operational. We will also embark upon a mission to recruit principal investigators and scientists, which are our core assets, and especially because of a retiring and aging scientist workforce. And we are hoping that with the rebranding of the AFRI's mission, its website, and with sending a message out to broader audience in the services and in the civilian world, we'll be able to recruit budding and young scientists to AFRI who can spend a lifetime career over there. These were some of the successes, challenges, and requirement of resources. And I'm hoping that with full support from the Uniformed Services University and from the Tri-Services senior leaders, we will make AFRI a success. And every success which AFRI has is an automatic success for USU. I'm again grateful to Dr. Thomas and Mr. Thompson for their full support in pursuit of our goals. Pending any further questions, this ends my presentation. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today.
Well, Colonel, again, welcome aboard, and thank you for that thorough report and your vision for the future. Please know that the Board of Regents stands behind you in terms of making AFRI a center of excellence, and we look forward to future reports as well. Are there any questions for the Colonel from any of the regents?
This is Major General Sean Murphy from the Air Force. Send me an email, Jeff Longacre, one of us can get it to you, because I think that in what you're saying, getting you hooked up to the 711th Human Performance Lab or wing up at Wright-Patt and their Air Force Research Lab might help with some of the same discussions on recruiting. So I think you have some commonalities that you might be able to share on how to attract young scientists into some of this. Over.
Yes, sir. Will do, sir. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? Well, hearing none, let's move on to the USU Brigade report by Colonel Patrick Donahue. And again, we want to welcome Colonel Donahue as the new brigade commander and look forward to working with him closely.
Good morning, Dr. Woodson. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I appreciate the introduction, sir. The USU Brigade continues to fully support the university's mission of educating and training health professionals while upholding the commander's values of accountability, leadership, integrity, and transformation. I provide a few key updates for the USU Board of Regents. On 11 June, I had the pleasure of changing command with Captain Sean Hussey and wished him well in a very impromptu ceremony here at USU. In addition, over the last month or so, we've had several significant leadership changeover in certain key positions. Lieutenant Colonel Dave Maldonado transitioned out over to Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, and we've welcomed Major Kevin Hayes as our new brigade executive officer. The brigade continues to provide direct support and indirect support to COVID-19 operations. Brigade operations continue to support Commander's Update Brief, external support request tracker, campaign plan template, and the return to work outlined in support of the university. We continue to manage all active duty exception to policy travel requests, both personal and professional. And we've been working with the School of Medicine and MEM in support of Antietam and or Operation Bushmaster, which both have been delayed due to COVID operations. From the Professor of Military Science update, Lieutenant Colonel Jake Bustos has transitioned to the National Defense University with a golden opportunity to attend Senior Service College. President Thomas has asked me to assume responsibilities of the Professor of Military Science in his stead. Over the past couple of weeks, we've had an opportunity to re-engineer with great leadership from the Office of the Professor of Military Science, re-engineer the summer operational experience to become the Summer Leader Program, which complements the leader curriculum in the School of Medicine and provides for an additional 80 hours of leader education, which includes practical application of leadership. The Office of Professor of Military Science and the Brigade kicked off with the School of Medicine today, which is the first day of orientation for the incoming class. The Brigade and the Office of Professor of Military Science have nested with the Graduate School of Nursing for their new student orientation as well. For the Board of Regents, I propose my commander's priorities. My end state and our shared vision to not only support the education and training of tomorrow's military and public health physicians, nurses, dentists, scientists, and leaders, but to instill a culture of intrusive servant leadership and military ethos. I envision doing this through focusing on several key areas, of that being training, readiness, leader development, service and heritage, and family support. Lastly, some of the brigade policies and initiatives that are currently ongoing. We've initiated our command climate survey as part of the first 90 days of my command tenure. The Brigade Command Office is continuing to communicate with the entire USU Brigade all on a routine basis to communicate pertinent information for shared understanding, especially in times of social unrest, sharp violations, and other ongoing issues throughout our nation. Lastly, the Brigade, over this past weekend, we have started preparing and tracking tropical storm moving up the East Coast, and we'll provide mission update and operating guidance in the near term. Sir, pending your questions, this is all I have.
Well, thank you for that thorough report, and again, welcome on board. I do have one question is, what is your assessment of sort of student morale as we move through this COVID crisis? It's been my impression from other activities that the students have felt the impact significantly and have concerns about their futures and education. Are there any morale concerns that the board should be aware of? And are there any efforts that we need to undertake to support the students better?
So I think the biggest morale issue is just not being on campus. I think it is wearing on the student population to learn virtually, where they thrive in in social interaction. So they did extremely well over the last 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks under the Summer Leader Program, and took a completely in-person operating environment and turned it into a virtual operating environment. That is wearing on them. They have no problem speaking their mind, which is wonderful. They bring their ideas up to the brigade leadership, the School of Medicine, Graduate School of Nursing leadership as well. And we vet those issues as they come aboard. But other than that, sir, I think it is just about a 50-50 split of morale issues as to, they just want to be on campus. They want to meet and interact, as do I. I want to see them out here through the glass windows and see them meandering through the courtyard. But given the current operating environment, sir, that's not possible. Over.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and we'll continue to monitor that and see what we can do that's innovative to support the students and their morale. Any other questions or comments for Colonel Donahue?
Yeah, this is Ken. Colonel, I really appreciate what you described in terms of monitoring the morale of the student body. And my question has to do with, we can do things reactively. And the question is, what, if anything, are we doing proactively, not only to monitor, but also to offer, for example, mental health intervention, and to encourage the students to seek mental health intervention if they feel necessary or concerned?
Sir, thank you. We have sent out several USU Brigade all messages over the last couple of weeks. Captain Hussey started that during the social unrest. I sent out one in regards to Specialist Guillaume out of the Fort Hood, where, because there was a student that addressed some concerns as being a female and her future being an officer, military physician, and how that might impact her. Within those messages, we do offer key avenues of points of contact or methods where officers, whatever service, can come in and talk to either the brigade chaplain, the diversity and inclusion section, other avenues within the university leadership here. And then we also have installation support through NSAB as well.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. If there are no other questions, we're going to move on to Dr. Travis, General Travis, and report on Campus South. Over to you, Dr. Travis.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Woodson. I'll keep my report very short. COVID, of course, impacting all of us. In Texas, we, as the city, the state, all started reopening. We started talking about entering phase one here in about mid-June. Of course, about that time, things started upticking again here in Texas. And really, we've kind of reverted or retreated, I guess, to phase zero. And most of us are still teleworking for the majority of the time, great majority of the time. Of course, the business goes on. You heard from Dr. Pelayo and Dr. Schneid, Dr. Pelayo in specific and her team, because METSI, the pipeline's open and flowing, you know, the activity still continues, and there are occasional face-to-face meetings required, but for the most part, it's done virtually. And, you know, as Dr. Pelayo has reported before in the Corona update briefs that we do with the university, communication really in many ways has been fine, and in fact, in some ways enhanced availability and the ability to connect. So we're all learning how to deal with this now, but the business goes on, and it's frankly succeeding well. I stay in very close touch with the leadership of MedCOE, the Navy Medical Forces Support Command, and of course METSI, and I can tell you their business continuing, and we're doing fine. On the real estate front, only because I've reported it to the board before, the South Beach Pavilion, which I know has been particular interest to some of you, Dr. Blank, you come to mind, and Dr. Thomas, of course. There's really not been any movement or action on that, and that building is now, you know, when I first started talking about this a few years ago, you know, we were thinking about trying to obtain that building a little sooner, or trying to get the private owners who also own our building to let us have access to it so we can start doing some renovation. Really mainly for DHA, but USU had some interest in it too. That's all really kind of gone quiet. And now we're close enough to the December 2021 when the building, per the agreements with Orion, the company that owns that building, will revert back to Air Force / DOD ownership. You know, we're now within sight of that date. I think really negotiations have kind of stalled, and the building revert back to us and to the military, and we'll go from there. DHA certainly is not firmly committing to anything with that building yet. I'm not saying I blame them, but they have indicated they might be interested in it once that building reverts back to DOD. As you might remember, they also, DHA occupies the North Beach Pavilion, which is on the other side here. At another time, I had reported that we were looking for potentially for a temporary building to increase the space here. We now have kind of withdrawn that request since the Military Training Network late last year vacated this building. It really gave us room to expand the College of Allied Health Sciences, which is really our only growing concern down here, into their space. And now we actually have room for more people. And in fact, this building now is occupied by 23 people. And as the College of Allied Health Sciences business grows, we're not in this to make money. We're in this to support the services. But since the only thing that will pay for, that we pay for with the monies received from DHA or the services, really is the personnel to support their programs. And having said all that, and you saw the numbers Dr. Pelayo presented, between the Southern region, to the few of us who run the region, the PDC and the CASH, we really only have 23 people in this building. So we have adequate space. And Jeff, you can go to the next slide. I always like a picture. That blue dot is where I'm sitting right now, in the corner of the East Beach building. We own that building, or we lease that building until 2023, at which time either, I guess, at some point we'll talk about ownership by DoD, or we'll renew the lease with the owner. But I don't know what's going to happen with that yet. And you can see up at the top of that quadrangle, that's North Beach, which is still DHA J6. And then the unoccupied South Beach, which is at the bottom labeled, that's the building that reverts back to DoD ownership in December 21. And that's, I think I'll leave it at that. If you want more details, it's certainly in tab 40, but I'm open to any questions you might have.
Well, thank you very much, General Travis. Are there any questions or comments for General Travis? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the report from the West Campus and Admiral Roberts.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Good morning to you, to President Thomas, and ladies and gentlemen. Pleased to give an abbreviated version of this report, the summary of which is in your board materials. As President Thomas has already said, the VPR Search Committee completed its work several weeks ago and forwarded our recommendations to President Thomas. I anxiously await his decision, or the announcement of his decision. This was a superb interdisciplinary effort by the search committee members, with superb executive support from my deputy in San Diego, Dr. Alan Nordholm, and the senior administrator within the Office of Research, Ms. Mary Kay Gibbons. She took primary responsibility for a magnificent combination, physical presence and virtual on board day on campus for our 4 finalists, including a job talk, which at its maximum with one of the finalists, I won't tell you which one, had 297 participants virtually on that job talk. So great interdisciplinary effort. And I thank President Thomas and the deans for devoting some superb members of the committee for a great process. Again, 26 original applicants narrowed down to 13, then to 6, then to 4. Student rotations in the Western region, as both Deans Kellerman and Acting Dean or Associate Dean Seibert have already mentioned. Interesting dynamic with getting them to their MTFs. I'd like to think, and I do think, that in the Western region, things were just a little bit smoother because of the dialogue among the among the MTFs, of course, varying and changing ROM, as well as clinical workload, and some really excellent work on the part of the School of Medicine, the Graduate School of Nursing, in terms of just-in-time and proactive adjustments to the rotations, including dates. Dr. Nordholm continues to work with all the School of Medicine clerkship coordinators within the Western region MTFs. I think that has been a superb ongoing effort, and we continue to be particularly appreciative to the Navy for the loan of Captain Natalie Berman, pediatrician, faculty development subspecialist, stationed currently at Naval Medical Center San Diego, who will be moving up to Camp Pendleton this summer. In fact, I believe she is on her in San Diego County because she can't go far under current rules and regulations for uniformed personnel. She is on her PCS leave between Naval Medical Center San Diego and Camp Pendleton. We look forward to an ongoing relationship with her as she assumes new duties. And she, of course, is the Regional Associate Dean for the School of Medicine based in Southern California. My other point today, 2 points, excuse me, is a big shout out both to the DHA J6, so the CIO for the military health system, Mr. Pat Flanders and his team, and of course, Mr. Tim Rapp and our USU IT team have been hugely collaborative in getting G Suite capability to our USU West offices. First ever, to the best of my knowledge, at a DHA facility. So we now have full functionality, or are approaching full functionality, and look forward to the possibility that in the future our students who are at MTFs under the DHA IMIT umbrella will have similar functionality, which will ease communication as well as distance and other types of innovative learning. And then finally, the Indo-Pacific Research Alliance for Military Medicine, I would say without fear of retribution or contradiction, has become even more relevant during this era of COVID-19. The Indo-Pacific surgeon, Rear Admiral Tripoli, has reached out to us and our member organizations, which by the way have included to incorporate Nellis Air Force Base and Sandia National Lab, for some ideas on cross-functional research in support of COVID-19 on multiple levels. He has already briefed the importance in his mind of the IPRAM dialogue and collaborative efforts with his relief, Rear Admiral Williams, and we look forward to interacting with her starting in a very few weeks. Subject to questions from you, Dr. Woodson, or anybody else, that is my report.
Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Are there any questions for Dr. Roberts? Hearing none, then we'll transition to the Finance and Administration report by Mr. Walt Tinlin.
Thank you, Dr. Woodson. Sound check?
Hear you loud and clear.
Great, thank you. My full report is at tab 27. I just want to hit a few highlights and expand on some of the comments that were made by President Thomas. We will finish the year without complications. We're making some progress on the reductions that he mentioned, I think, from our supporters on the Hill, but it's too early to predict how that's going to turn out. We are facing continued loss of personnel across all of the VFA, but especially in acquisition. Those jobs that are available in the National Capital Region are graded higher in other government agencies. And so we train them and then we lose them. Just can't hang on to our folks. So we have to expand the pool of trainees so that we actually have more people on board than we actually need at any one time. I want to say a few things about the reductions that were planned for the operations and maintenance account for the university, and just put it in a little bit of context. We made some really hard choices when you saw that list of programs that we eliminated in our budget submit. Those decisions were driven in large part by history. And what I mean by that is, for the first 38 years that the university existed, the university had only one appropriation, operations and maintenance, and only one budget activity group, Bag 6, education and training. And so when we were given other missions in those first 38 years, the dollars that came to support that mission came in Bag 6. So, and the best example of that is the Tri-Service Nursing Research Program. Those dollars were given to the university in Bag 6 and when they were first programmed, and that's where they remained. So the second factor that drove those decisions was the fact that the 10 million cut in FY21 becomes a 20 million cut in FY22. So we had to be able to build on the 21 cuts in anticipation of the 22 cuts coming as well. So those two things together drove those decisions that you saw on that sheet of paper. It would be no surprise to anyone that the bag 6, of course, is our biggest bag. It's 76% of the USU operations and maintenance budget. And so when you have to find 10 million or 20 million, there's only really one place to look, and that's in bag 6. The other thing I'd just like to mention is sort of what we're calling the new normal. As COVID hit, the university adapted what we call first 40 or any 80 hours that you put on the time card. You can get them 14 hours one day and 6 the next, or however you want to do it. And also with the shutdown, we went to full-time telework for the vast majority of my people. Now, some folks who work for me can't telework. The people who work at the loading dock, they have to be there to accept packages. Animal feed has to be delivered and distributed, et cetera. And the carpenters and the plumbers and the electricians can't work virtually. But audit, accounting, budget, acquisition, all of those folks, they haven't been in the office for 180 days. And I don't know that they will ever come back to the lease space they were in or the space on campus that they used to occupy, even after COVID is over. We've proven that we can get the work done. We haven't missed a single deadline or a reporting requirement, and the work is getting done. So it's going to be a different environment going forward in the future. Thank you for your time this morning, and subject to your questions, that's all I had to share today.
Thank you for that report. And I think as you're indicating, the new normal post-COVID will look different in terms of workforce and how we aggregate the workforce. There may be some benefits in terms of reduction in cost, in terms of space that's required to house these individuals, but we do need to make sure that we develop the accountability rules for our distributed workforce. So more on this to come. So thanks very much for that report.
Yes, sir.
Looking forward. Are there any other comments or questions for Mr. Tinling? Okay, hearing none, then we're going to go on to the Office of Research report by Dr. Randolph.
Good morning, Dr. Woodson. Thank you for the opportunity to bring the Office of Research briefing to the board. I'd like to start with the first slide. Thank you, Jeff. I just want to report that all VPR staff are to be congratulated for their steadfastness, creative problem solving, and adaptability to support the university's mission. They have to be and have been commended by VPR leadership as well as USU leadership. And many will receive and are receiving recognitions as we speak for their service during the STEAM outage and or the pandemic. It's really been a real true team effort. I've been very proud of how the VPR staff have come together and managed to continue being productive. Those who are working off site have been extremely productive, as well as those who have had to come in such as our DLAR staff and our big staff. So thank you. Next slide, please. Just to highlight a few of the major accomplishments, obviously they're provided in detail in your board brief, but I just wanted to give special shout outs, obviously, to my colleagues, Dr. Bruce Dahl and Dr. Laura Broche, for all that they've done to support me in this acting role, but also to the leaders who work within each of our offices, including the main office staff. As you heard, Mrs. Mary Kay Gibbons was very active in supporting Dr. Roberts and the VPR search But there are many others who have also been very active across the board in VPR and have served on numerous ASD, Health Affairs, R&D, COVID task force, special working groups, as well as J9 and others certainly within the university. And so I really appreciate all of them and just hope that they'll continue to serve in those regards under the new leadership. The offices of Research Administration, Compliance, and Tech Services, which includes animal and the large instrumentation services, continues to prioritize COVID research. We make sure that when we receive requests for review and approval with regards to COVID research, we put it at the top of the pile, if you will, or put it in the queue and get it done quickly. A couple of things with regards to personnel and infrastructure. There's still a few critical positions that need to be hired in DLAR. Those recruitment announcements should go out, within the next, I would say, 2 weeks. I've recently signed some of that paperwork so that we can begin recruiting. But there are also some critical vacancies in the areas of scientific review. We don't have a scientific review officer, but that position will be recruited through the Jackson Foundation, and we hope to get that on the street very soon. IRB is onboarding 2 highly qualified human subjects, human research protection scientists, and they are onboarding as we speak. Dr. Laura Broche and her team, also led by Dr. Patrice Longenecker, are onboarding those 2 scientists. Next slide, please. With regards to research awards, next slide, please. Thank you. As you can see from this donut chart, we have, and this was as of June 30th, this number may grow because we haven't entered all of the FY20 data, but I did want to give you a sneak peek of what we've brought in to date. In extramural funding, it's $247 million or $248 million in extramural funding. We're very proud of that. Of course, that speaks to the quality of faculty and student researchers that we have at the university, and the trust that organizations place on our university and on our faculty to accomplish the research and the expertise that we have. So going forward, we obviously will continue to submit requests for extramural funding, and I'm sure we will continue to be competitive. Next slide, please. Again, President Thomas and Dr. Roberts have mentioned that the permanent VP will be announced this week. I'm very excited about that. I will return to my responsibilities as the Assistant Vice President for Research Administration. But in my acting role, I am preparing a transition brief for the new VP. And these are these are 2 of many things that I will provide the briefing on, but these are 2 challenges that I intend to cover, along with a few ideas that I have, and I'll discuss this with VPR leadership on how we can address these challenges. So the elimination of the ILIR R&D funding is going to be a real big hit for the Office of Research. We use this money to not only support faculty and student research on what's been, an annual or every other year basis, but we also use that money to hire critical personnel within the Office of Research through what's called the PESMOA hiring agreement with HJF. And so to not have the funds means we need to be creative and find ways to continue to support faculty and student research projects, as well as keep our staff hired. And I'll discuss that with the next VP. Next slide, please. Oh, there may have been one more slide. Sorry about that. All it said was thank you. Thank you so much. This is my final briefing as the acting VP, second time serving in this role. And I really appreciate President Thomas. I appreciate you, Dr. Woodson and the board for all of your support during these past 6 or 7 months. I also want to extend a thanks to my Responsibility Center colleagues. They've been very supportive. But most of all, I want to thank the VPR staff for continuing to support research requirements in an exemplary fashion, and the faculty and students for their passion and their expertise in mission relevant research. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I've enjoyed it. And pending your questions, sir, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that very thorough report, but more importantly, thank you for your efforts as you stepped into the breach and kept the research effort afloat, particularly during this challenging time. So you deserve a great cyber round of applause for your efforts, and we look forward to working with you on a continuing basis as you go back into your usual role, but the board deeply appreciates your efforts. Are there any comments or questions for Dr. Randolph?
Dr. Woodson, this is Walt Tinling. Could I expand a little bit for just 1 minute?
Yes, absolutely.
So the reductions that Dr. Randolph mentioned to the ILAR program, I just want to expand on that briefly. So that's our basic research dollars, and those dollars are programmed in a particular fashion. So the three areas of basic science that they're designed to support are military unique medicine, combat casualty care, and infectious disease. So you have to ask yourself, in the middle of a pandemic, in what planet does it make sense to eliminate all of the funding for basic infectious disease research? And yet that is what CAPE did. CAPE programmed those reductions, as well as the reductions to the Cardiac Center and the Pain Center and basic health sciences research. Those were selected by CAPE and not by the university. And the last point I want to make is Defense-Wide Review 2.0 is still in progress. CAPE has a goal of a 5% across the board reduction to the fourth estate. The fourth estate is comprised of all of the DODs, DODEA, DODECA, DARPA, DITRA, et cetera, and the Defense Health Program. That 5% reduction to the Defense Health Program is another $2.2 billion. Since 2010, the Defense Health Program has given back to the department over $114 billion that was previously programmed for the Defense Health Program mission. And this process of allocating the reductions in Defense-Wide Reduction 2.0 has not been transparent. We actually don't know what the agreements are already booked in the program of record. We haven't seen the results, but there were versions of that reduction scheme that resulted in a 90% reduction of all research at the university. And so if that was to come to fruition, we would have one research program funded in the fit-up, and that's our collaboration with the University of California at San Francisco with Dr. Stan Prusner. So I just wanted to outline that briefly. Over.
Thank you for bringing those points up, and it does suggest that what we might need to do offline, but very soon, is recraft a lot of the rebuttals and submissions about the budget cuts in the context of COVID and the essential nature of these research programs. You know, I think a lot of things will be looked at differently, and you will probably get more support in many venues for support of these programs, but we do need to articulate that clearly. There obviously might be a lot of changes in the next 5 months, and that'll add to sort of the turmoil of issues. And that's why clarity of message is going to be very, very important. So more on this to follow. Thank you for bringing up those points, Walt. And Dr. Randolph, thanks again for your efforts. Are there any other questions for Dr. Randolph?
Dr. Woodson, Art Kellerman, I just want to add to what Walt Tinling said, that I'm sure that I've lost count of the number of times that we've had to justify our programs, our existence, our impact. I have never seen an instance in the last 2 years where CAPE or the controller have had to red team or have any rigorous assessment of the costs, risks, and second and third level consequences of the magnitude of the reductions that are being contemplated. I'm sure we have some senior line officers in the board. I can't imagine that we would do that with any major weapons acquisition program or strategy, and yet that's precisely what we're doing in the case of the degradation of the military health system. Over.
Yeah, thanks again for that comment. I think, again, the issue is we need to come out with a strong voice about how essential these programs are to sort of the health of the force and the ability of the Department of Defense to defend this nation. You know, without a healthy force, no weapon system is really going to be useful. And so I think, you know, again, there are many constituents and stakeholders in Congress and elsewhere that now are, you know, rethinking some of the issues relative to the cuts. But it's up to us to really articulate in a very pointed way some of the risks in terms of erosion of the institutional base that can't be created or recreated on a moment's notice. And also, you know, rightfully to provide the most efficient plan for achieving that across the services. So what is the value statement? And I'm preaching to the choir here, so I know that, but I think we'll always have to justify budgets, and all parts of the government are going to have to increasingly justify budgets, particularly since we've added about $4 trillion to the debt. And that's going to need to be addressed. But the relevance of USU and military medicine should not be questioned, but we'll have to keep it in front of the stakeholders' minds. Other comments or questions? All right. Hearing none, then we're going to move on to the Faculty Senate report, and that will be provided by Lieutenant Colonel Craig Myatt. And I want to welcome Colonel Myatt to his new role as the new Faculty Senate President. Over to you, Colonel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Woodson. Good morning to you and President Thomas and the distinguished members of the Board of Regents, as well as the other USU leadership. The Faculty Senate is working closely with the university leadership and department chairs as faculty, staff, and students prepare for now a second academic year in the SARS-CoV-2 COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, distributed and distance learning platforms and virtual presentations are the new norm for the Faculty Senate and Faculty Assembly for conducting business. We can go to the next slide, please. Education Day is a perfect example of how effectively the Faculty Senate and Faculty Assembly are embracing our new norm. As chair of the Education Committee in academic year 2020, I had the privilege of working with the committee to plan for Education Day 2020 in June as a virtual event using Adobe Connect as a technology platform. The theme for Education Day was Health Sciences Innovations Shaping the Strategic Operational Medicine Framework. Our moderator was Dr. Dale Smith. Our keynote speakers were Dr. Joseph Caraballo, President and CEO of the Henry Jackson Foundation, and Dr. Deborah Powell, Dean Emerita and Professor of Pathology at the University of Minnesota School of Medicine. In the current Board of Regents report, there is a link that provides you with video recordings of Education Day, and I recommend that you take some time to review that. The Faculty Senate continues to review research policy support and will do so throughout academic year 21. The Faculty Senate supports and endorses, along with the USU leadership, a change in the existing federal interpretation of the Paperwork Reduction Act and its execution by organizations external to USU. This has been a topic presented before, and it's one that we'll continue to track throughout this academic year. In the current COVID-19 environment, the Faculty Senate is committed to ensuring safe passage, return to work for our faculty, staff, and students. Through efforts established by the previous Faculty Senate president, my predecessor, Dr. Penny Pierce, The Faculty Senate established a new innovative forum for exchange of information among faculty that supports this safe passage. The forum is Connect and Chat. It serves the function of a faculty house or faculty lounge, supporting professional and collegial discussion among faculty. We're using this medium to ensure that as we're bringing students back and faculty are returning, that we're following all of the guidelines set forth before us, and we're addressing concerns among faculty and staff, personal and professional. Dr. Vakar Syed, in academic year 2020, completed another extensive report on annual salary and comparability analysis. This year, I simply want to say that in general, salaries at USU remain competitive. There are, however, specific considerations for improvement outlined in the Board of Regents report that the Faculty Senate will continue to report on at the quarterly Board of Regents meetings throughout academic year 2021. The Consortium for Health and Military Performance defines resilience as the ability to withstand, recover, and grow in the face of stressors and changing demands. The Faculty Senate is providing its governance through resilience. Next slide, please. This year, we have more than 7 new Faculty Senate members who are already stepping up to help us address our academic year 2021 vision. Throughout academic year 2021, the Faculty Senate will focus on building a year of refreshed excellence. Next slide. The Faculty Senate is postured this year to serve with a renewed perspective and refreshed commitment, providing ongoing excellence at USU. There's a lot of work to be done this year. We have a very competent Faculty Senate available to address the university-wide challenges at hand, and we're looking forward to working with the Board of Regents throughout this academic year. I want to thank you, Dr. Woodson, for this opportunity to present to the Board of Regents.
Thank you very much, Colonel Myatt. One question, perhaps, are there any particular concerns among the faculty about return to work? I know in my other capacity, we've had to ensure that we can make accommodations for faculty who might have health issues or be living at home with individuals that have health issues. Have any concerns been raised?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That is a nice example of some of the concerns that have been expressed at our Connect and Chat sessions. And as those concerns have been raised, we've presented those to leadership, and from time to time, we'll bring in different subject matter experts to speak to the faculty during the Connect and Chat forum. One of the key things is communication. What we recognize is that the Faculty Senate can play a key role in helping to facilitate communication from the top down and from the bottom up, so that as policies and responses to various policy and guidance change and are updated, we're able to communicate that effectively.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments for Colonel Myatt?
Yes, Chairman Dick Cody.
Please, General Cody.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is for our Senate brief, but and it may be just for Secretary McCaffrey. As I listen to all of this, especially the finance report, where we are in bag 6 in particular, and what we're facing with Kate, I wonder either Secretary McCaffrey or someone else, what help can we as Board of Regents be to assist you all in, talking to Kate, or, how are your negotiations with Kate going? I served in the building for 6 years, and it's kind of a disconnect. I hear people talk about, wow, this is a perfect storm coming. We all know it's coming. We all can opine on what we think the second, third order effects are. Even if we exaggerate, none of them are good. And so I just wonder, probably Secretary McCaffrey, what help can we be for you, and how are you fighting off this or staving off some of these cuts that CAPE are recommending? Over.
So thank you, General Cody. I think what the board is already doing, working with Dr. Thomas in terms of identifying implications and impacts of proposed reductions. I think as Dr. Woodson indicated earlier, I don't anticipate, regardless of what happens in November, I don't anticipate the DoD's top-line budget getting any better. In fact, it could be worse because of the $4 trillion in debt that's being accumulated. There are lots of things on the table being considered across the department that I would put in the bucket of ugly and not desirable. And so what we're doing is we're bringing all that information about the impacts of those items under consideration. But at the end of the day, the department leadership needs to make the decisions about you got a pie that's a finite size, and how do you allocate those dollars? There are things being considered, and I want to underscore considered, pre-decisional, not any final decisions, that have great impacts, potential impacts to the operation of the Defense Health Agency, as indicated, core R&D funding of the department, issues in the IT arena that could greatly impact the ability of the department to continue the EHR deployment. So there are a number of items across the health system and across other portfolios that are being looked at. And right now, the focus, because of the desire to support the military department's efforts on modernization and increased lethality, the focus is on the fourth estate. And so if the focus is on the fourth estate, there are, only so many places to look. And if you also look in the Defense Health Program, same issue. The pie is quite large when you think of it, but if you look at bag one and bag two, which is the delivery of health care to our beneficiaries and our active duty, either in our system or through TRICARE, as you know, you can't make any kind of significant material changes in those areas unless you actually change the statute governing the program. And so if you are being given targets of $2+ billion per year over the FIDA to be looking at in the Defense Health Program, you're looking at that at like about 20% of the pie. So I don't think that there is a dearth of information or impacts being talked about in the building in terms of assessing different options. We keep pushing those implications and making sure before any final decisions are made, senior leaders have all the best information we need to bring forward to them.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. It's rough in-house elbowing up there in the building right now, and I think you're correct. I think the 2021 is a harbinger budget. It's an omen. No matter who wins the election, they're going to be faced with $4 trillion additional. And even though they print money, at some point the top line of DoD is going to get stretched. So I got it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. If there are no other questions, then we're going to move on to the report by the Henry M. Jackson Foundation and Dr. Carvalho.
Thank you, Chairman. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to update the board on HGF's collaborative efforts, its direct support of USU, and its support of requirements-driven medical research. And today I'll highlight items from my full report that you will find in your packet. The first, under financial update, we continue to steadily increase our collaborative efforts to support USU research. And for FY 2020, we're projected to provide close to $271 million for this effort. This represents $12 million increase from 2019 and a $55 million increase from 2017. HGF manages 32 endowment awards that support USU directly, and this totals $40.9 million. Now, when you look at how well those endowments are doing with regards to interest earned, it has grown since 2010 by 5.8%. benchmarking as a benchmark, other like endowment investment programs have increased by 5.2%. There was a decrease, as you know, with investment returns early during the global pandemic, but it has since recovered in the most recent quarter. The 2020 spend, on the other hand, for the endowments this year has been $1.7 million. Switching now to HEF support during this COVID-19 pandemic, we currently manage 515 awards on behalf of USU investigators. As Dr. Thomas highlighted, there are a number of programs associated directly with COVID-19. We believe IDCRP spearheads this as it requires multiple engagements with HGF for personnel to conduct multi-site, in this case, multi-MTF clinical trials. Because of our ability to scale, we were able to move our lab personnel who have the security clearance, the CAC cards, and the on-site training available from suspended programs into COVID-19 focused efforts, so that those teams could move out without missing a beat. And I just received a notification from Dr. Brody at CNRM that they have a promising nanoparticle for the treatment of SARS-CoV-2, which, as you know, causes COVID-19. That's something that we're going to engage with our tech transfer team and our reach into the private industry to notify them of this possibility, to look for possible public-private partnerships to pursue this going forward. And then finally, I'd like to talk about the consolidation of the USU centers. That has been an ongoing effort despite the global pandemic, with a number of centers of excellence that have moved into the Rockledge Center, or where we have our home office. Of note, in addition to ample space, there's 17,500 square feet of lab space that the centers have access to. And then very finally in this section, I want to talk about the USU Collaboratorium that we signed a letter of intent to proceed with. And this is in direct support to CNRM or in support to USU writ large. We anticipate that this will hold 150 to 200 personnel in a state-of-the-art collaborative setting, so long desks and outlets, and the ability to have high-definition audiovisual support, so that you can do on-site collaboration as well as off-site domestic and international meetings. We think that this will add to the value of USU and its ability to collaborate with academia and other entities. Chairman, this concludes my brief, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, General Carvalho. Any questions for Henry Jackson Foundation in, after this report? Well, again, thank you. Hearing none, we'll move on then to the Office of the General Counsel and Mr. Peterson.
Good morning. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to speak to you today. I do want to draw your attention to tab 46 where most of the material is at, and then we'll go through the brief as really quickly. But the reason I want to bring your attention to those materials is twofold. One is it gives a more expansive discussion of the ethics issues I'm going to hit the treetops on. And then secondly, there's a handout there, which is the second portion there that needs to be sent back in to OGC. It has a place for you to sign that you've read the handout. And that's for all of those members of the board who are 450 filers with us. If you are a federal official with another federal agency and you file your 278 with some other agency, you do that. If you file your 450 with us because of your position on the Board of Regents, then you'll please return that in. So as a FACA member, you are a special government employee, unless, as I indicated, you are a federal employee of some other agency. And so these are the kind of the ethics rules I'll do the treetops on. And once again, tab 46 has a greater discussion. Next slide. So as a federal employee, conflicts of interest obviously is one of those areas that of special importance that we keep an eye on. And one of the things that we do to help you achieve that is you file a 450, and some of you do file 278s. Now, those of you that do file 450s with us, that's done on an annual basis. As a note here, if, however, there's any change in that 450 information, it's best practice to be able to inform the DFO. That sort of information would be if you change employees, employment, you have any significant holdings that should be disclosed, that you do update that to the DFO anytime that occurs, but of course, annually on your 450. Next slide. So the conflict of interest statute, as it says there, I just want to point out, just for FYI, if it ever comes of an issue, 18 USC is a criminal statute. It's a criminal part of the U.S. Code. So this conflict of interest statute does have criminal penalties that are involved. And basically, it prohibits anyone from participating personally or substantially in anything that's going to have a direct financial interest to you or predictable financial interest to you. And that also includes those of your immediate family, and can include employee affiliation if you're in a general partnership, and of course, future employment. So make sure that if you have any questions with regards to anything that may impact anything you do for the Board of Regents that may impact any future activity you may have, you come and talk to us and we can advise you on that. Next slide. This slide only indicates that there are different rules that apply to how long you've been in as a Board of Regents. If you have been in the Board of Regents for longer than 130 days, that means the days that you actually set as a member of the Board of Regents in your special government employee status, that you basically no longer have any different rules and you're treated just like a government employee. And so once you hit that 130-day mark, which I believe it would take obviously 2 terms to hit that mark. Next slide. Okay, quickly, I'll go through these as the treetop. These are the rules that apply. Misuse of DoD position. You may not use your title as on the Board of Regents for any private gain. And you cannot use, obviously, your DoD resources or DoD time for any private gain, okay? You must use a disclaimer if you're going to use your Board of Regents title. You need biographical information. Of course, you need to get that approved from USU if you're going to write anything using your Board of Regents position. Any gifts that you receive as a Board of Regents member, you'll need to just check with us if you receive any of those gifts. And generally they're not allowed, but you can check with us and we can give you an ethics brief on that. You must be impartial and ensure there's no conflicts of interest in any decisions that you're making or any advice that you're giving as a member of the Board of Regents with any, of course, as I said before, any sort of financial holdings or private business deals or your employment that you may have. There is no partiality. Fundraising, you may not use your Board of Regents title in any sort of fundraising. And that goes, of course, with any sort of solicitation as well. You are not able to solicit on behalf of the university using your Board of Regents title. Next slide. As a special government employee, you may not be an agent or a lobbyist of a foreign principal. The Hatch Act applies to you, which means as a member here of the Board of Regents, if you were to have a sign behind you that said elect so-and-so, that would be a violation of the Hatch Act. And luckily I didn't see any signs out there behind anybody, but that would be a violation if that were the case. And finally, as you know, any information that's presented here at the Board of Regents, particularly at the closed session, is government information, and you are precluded from releasing that unless only in accordance to authorized rules and regulations that are in for any government employee with regards to government information that's provided. That concludes my brief. Subject to any questions, just remember that our office, myself, my deputy Sam Smith, or any of our attorneys are open to any questions of any ethics issues that you may have regarding your service on the Board of Regents. And with that, I conclude my brief.
Well, thank you for that update and that refresher. I've been filing 278s and 450s for a long time, and it's always important to have a reminder about how to do it accurately and how to keep ourselves from being in violation of the law. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Peterson? Well, hearing none, then we are going to close the open session of this board meeting. Again, while we're sort of publicly oriented now, I want to thank Dean Kellerman for his superb service and look forward to being able to congratulate him and reward him in person in the not too distant future. I want to state that only the regents, to include the civilian regents, of course, the ASD, Dr. Thomas, and the SGs are to participate in the closed session from this point on. If there's any question about who should participate, please ask that now. I'll pause for a moment. Hearing
Dr.
none.
Watson,
go ahead.
This is Tom McCaffrey. Not any questions, but unfortunately, I need to drop off. I'm 10 minutes late to a meeting with the boss.
Understand.
All right. I will follow up with you in terms of any feedback or issues for the executive session.
Thank you. Okay. So hearing no other comments, we are going to end the open session at this point. I'll take a 5-minute break and then reconvene the closed session at that time. So the time now is 11:09, and we'll reconvene at, let's just say 11:15.
Dr. Woodson, we'll